how we see the international work in South Africa. They have wrote something and wanted to appeal it to the body for revisions. And we have to look at that and see if that's a good decision for us to make in the function of that. And I know there will probably be a lot of conversation around that. And also, you know, we're looking at a crisis of everywhere we are, African people are being shoved out, jobs. And so we wanted to look at the levels for cost of living to see if we need to make changes around the membership levels as well. And we want to change names of membership levels. So all that's happening on today when we vote. And we are going to be talking about branches today. We have an important panel on African shores genocide and then the way forward with African shores genocide. I'm hoping to see everybody, and they expect the cities with the African shores genocide tour. So like what that look like, what do you have to do to bring myself, or, you know, in some regions we have different panelists. As you see, we're gonna have Director Aisha Fields. We're gonna have President Yejide Olamila, and we have region reps as well that all can be part of the African Shore Genocide Tour. So, and we want to see and we want this tour to happen wherever we are. So we're going to have that discussion and actually give a packet and like what that looked like, the tour, and, you know, speakers and resources, the questions, and how you can use this to build in your area. So I just want to really appreciate everybody for getting themselves back here. Give yourself a round of applause for a great day yesterday. An amazing day, and we're getting ready for another day. So this convention is ready. So, Comrade Jashan Uhuru.
The struggle is real. This is genocide. Uhuru, comrades. Uhuru. It's great to see all y'all Africans today and everybody who's with us. Today, there's a couple of things that I want to announce. One thing is, are we live? Okay, so yesterday we didn't really have a lot of participation online. So if y'all can go to the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement Facebook page and share the live feed, so people in your cities can see what's going on, because you know this is for everybody. Okay, and then on YouTube, it's the Burning Spear TV. So share them all day. Keep on sharing them. Another thing is about taking pictures, recording. That's not allowed? What's the policy? Which is you. Okay. So if y'all trying to record anything, take pictures or anything, this brother right here who been seeing bust his ass on the media stuff, make sure you get permission for him, okay? Anything else? There's that's it, right? Pretty much like, okay, cool. All right, so right now I'm honored to bring Comrade to the stage to perform some culture, coming straight out of St. Petersburg, Florida. You feel me? Hey, let's go ahead and give a round of applause to our comrade, Oh Bing.
Uhuru. Make the South Side. Make the South Side. Unity through. All right. I am a spoken word artist, so I'm gonna give my best to y'all today. Okay. Chairman, wherever you are, if you're watching this or listening to this, I promise you, I will revise this poem for you later on. But tonight I'm gonna do it this way. I couldn't be a poet if not for a cause. I couldn't voice these words if not for us all. I wasn't given this special talent for some personal movement. I do this in honor of the revolution. Okay, hold on real quick. Let me stop real quick. I do want to say this. I'm gonna start that over. You guys, you can participate in this. You will hear your cue. I'm not gonna have to tell you. You'll know for sure. So let's start again. Okay? All right? Let's start it again. You'll know your cue, I promise you. I couldn't be a poet if not for a cause. I couldn't voice these words if not for us all. I wasn't given this special talent for some personal movement. I do this in honor of the revolution. I stand in the midst of our fallen. I stand and raise my fist to Jesse Owens, Jackie Robinson, Muhammad Ali, those who dared to be great, those who use their platforms to stare down the faces of hate, those who use their names for no personal movement, risking freedom, citizenship, and livelihood in honor of the revolution. This is not a poem, but a going home letter in memory of Dick Gregory, who gave us better health and better solutions to better living. His life was not given for some personal movement, but he do this in honor of the revolution. So let us not forget about Dr. Sebi, who maybe was the best holistic practitioner they took from us lately, who taught us how to heal ourselves through alkalinity. Your spirit will live on through infinity. And let us live on in the spirit of our fighters, the ones who try to unite us and do it for no personal movement, but they do it in honor of the revolution. Right on. So let us live on in the spirit of our fighters, the ones who try to unite us and do it for no personal movement, but they do it in honor of the revolution. So thank you, Mother Athena, for birthing the prophet. You brought on this earth Tupacalypse, and he brought us a lot of hits that we still play in our cars and spit his words off our lips as if he was alive today. He brought us so much meaning in the eyes of media, and they did everything to try and dilute him, because he did it not for his personal movement, but he did it in honor of the revolution. So again, thank you, Mother Athena. And I thank the queens of this nation, banded together, holding banners, screaming fuck integration with their natural afros and the L waving the celebration to Mother Angela Davis. Some with the profile of Sister Nina Simone, some with locks as long as Toni Morrison's love poems. Some things never change, and we don't subscribe to evolution because we still fighting to break the chains in honor of the revolution. So what's a revolution without the mentioning of our fathers? The Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, the George Washington Carvers, and the Dr. Carter G's, the Booker T. Washingtons, and the Dr. Martin Kings, and that's still not enough movement to finish the revolution. I thank the gods for the father, Huey P. Newton, but if we gonna do this, we got to get moving. That means we got to penetrate the music right now. Remember? Say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud, by the godfather of soul, James Brown. That's the kind of sound we're gonna need in unison. So when you see our brother Colin Kaepernick, tip your hat to him, kneel, and keep moving, because that brother's taking us places. He's giving us a face on a racist plantation where people escape the reality of police brutality. And he's doing this not for his personal movement, but he's doing this in honor of the revolution. And you thought I would do this without ever mentioning the best. Yes, I bet you thought I would write this without mentioning the godfather, Malcolm X, the revolutionary behind the writing of this text, the revolutionary that has me out searching for the next Malcolm. And when I look toward the horizon, I see no one coming over the mountain, so the outcome is very slim. And every time I point my finger thinking it's him, it's him, it's him, there's three pointing back at me with much scrutiny. But the words I keep hearing play over and over in my head is, it's you they need for the revolution. And with that, I say, I am Malcolm X. Oh, make the South Side, make the South Side, unity through, unity through. All right, ooh, St. Pete, St. Louis, we're in the house.
Yo, give it up for our comrade O'Bain. Give it up for the comrade. Uhuru. Uhuru. It's extremely important that we have culture a part of the movement. Extremely important. I really appreciated the Malcolm X part, comrade. So I wanted to, whose are these? Nobody? Okay, so if there's, okay. Those were left at the front door, phone and keys. What we're about to get into right now is an extremely important panel. This panel, as we've been talking about on the, this whole convention, is speaking to the question of genocide. Of us really having a firm understanding that we are facing genocide. And so what we're gonna do right now is get into this panel for Africans Charged Genocide. And this panel is gonna be extremely powerful. We have just heavy hitters. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring all the comrades to the stage who are on the panel. We have Yejide. Where's Yejide? Uhuru. We heard a little bit from Yejide yesterday, and she hosted the political education this morning. But Yejide is the president of the African National Women's Organization, and so we're really honored to have her on this panel. We have Aisha Fields. Uhuru. And Aisha Fields is the president of APDEP, which is an organization that Africans with different skills can be a part of APDEP and use their skills for the revolution instead of the pollution. You see that? Yeah, okay, I got, you feel me? I'm a poet and you didn't even know it. That was twice. And our last panelist is our mighty president of InPDUM, Kalambai and Danette. And we also have the honor of having our comrade, one of our newer comrades from San Diego, Michael Odom, who's gonna be the moderator of the panel. Uhuru.
All right, Uhuru, everybody. Uhuru. All right. Like Jason said, my name is Michael Matsamela Ali Odom. I am from Long Beach, California, but born in Long Beach, California, live in San Diego. Amongst multiple things in San Diego right now, we have a campaign through our African Charged Genocide Working Group that we've been developing called African Unity at the Border, in which we, well, first and foremost, I think it's sort of crucial. One thing that we established is that in San Diego is occupied Mexico. And from there, we sort of have a long history of unity and solidarity between African and Mexican people. But we also know that because of these sort of colonial borders, the African community in the San Diego-Tijuana region, there's a bulk of them stuck on the other side, not able to move freely as they would like to, and now even more and more being stuck even in places like Guatemala, Honduras, things like that, not being able to move as they want to, even as they sort of chase their resources that have been stolen from them and increasingly taken here. I think that's what really allows for us to understand what we're talking about as genocide today, because yesterday I think that the chairman clearly laid out what we as an African Charged Genocide Campaign understand as genocide. Very too often you get some really say narrow nationalist sort of opportunists who really take this understanding of genocide in very reactional understandings of ways or idealistic understanding of ways. But here we understand genocide through the sort of lens of dialectical materialism and sort of understanding genocide materially, as the chairman outlined yesterday. We understand that genocide is the tool through which white power is willing to use to maintain the looting of the resources of African people, and even understanding that some of the ultimate resources of African people are African people themselves, right? And the lives of African people. One of the things that Chairman talks about in Vanguard, the Advanced Detachment of the Revolution, the report from the 7th Congress, which I suggest everyone go grab a copy of, is for example, the foster care system, things like that. So those are some of the things that we really want to talk about on this panel. Like I said, my name is Mike Oldham. I'm from San Diego. Amongst things with the ACG, we're doing, I also teach Black Studies at local colleges and universities over there as well. So I'm very happy to be a part of this panel, as well as Sister Yejide Ormila from ANWO, Sister Aisha Fields of OPDEP, and of course, the President, Kalambi Andanet, President of InPDUM. So what I would like to do right now, as we move forward, first I'll begin with us understanding, in a material understanding, what has been understood as genocide as we move forward and talk about, as we move forward this panel. Is that okay with you all? Mm-hmm. All right, uhuru. So, excuse me. In 1946, the General Assembly of the United Nations gave this definition of the crime of genocide. Genocide, quote, genocide is a denial of the right of existence of entire human groups, as homicide is the general, as homicide is the denial of the right to live of individual human beings, such as the denial of the existence of shocks. Denial of existence shocks the conscience of mind, results in great loss to humanity in the form of cultural and other contributions, represented by human groups, and is contrary to moral law and to the spirit and the aims of the United Nations. And quote, many instances of such crimes of genocide have occurred when racial, religious, political, and other groups have been destroyed entirely or in part. The punishment of the crime of genocide is a matter of international concern. Next, the General Assembly therefore affirms that genocide is a crime under the international law, which the civilized world condemns, and for the commission of which principals and accomplices, whether private individuals, public officials, or statesmen, and whether the crime is committed on religious, racial, political, or any other grounds, are punishable. Invites the members of the member states to enact necessary legislation for the prevention and punishment of this crime. It's recommended, and then I'll move down to, it says, Article 2 of the United Nations Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide adopted another resolution in 1948 stating that in the present convention, genocide means any of the following acts committed with the intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group, such as A, killing members of the group, B, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, C, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, D, imposing measures intended to prevent births within a group, E, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group, right? Like we're talking about with the foster care system. Let's see. The following acts shall be punishable. A, genocide, conspiracy to commit genocide, direct and public incitement to genocide, attempt to commit genocide, complicity in genocide. And once again, again and again, these are the understandings that have been understood on the international level of what genocide is. Right? It was the determination of the judges of the tribunal that $4.1 trillion at the 1982 currency are due as reparations to African people from the U.S. government for the stolen labor alone. So it's in that sort of material context of what we understand as genocide, I would like to move forward with our panel. Are you okay with that? Uhuru. Uhuru, everybody. So, I would like to start with Sister Yesterday, Chair of UNWO. Sister Yesterday, would you be able to speak to how African women have experienced genocide and why African internationalism is the highest form of liberation for African people and African women in response to that genocide?
I think when we talk about African women, I think that it has to be done in relation to the whole African people. Because these things that are happening to African people, African women in particular, doesn't impact just African women alone. It affects the entire African nation. And so, for example, like the whole foundation upon which capitalism sits is the African woman's womb. And everything that has come from the birthing of African people, the raping of African women, the production of labor, all of that is how capitalism in and of itself is primarily rested in the womb of the African woman. Yeah. And so really when we're talking about genocide, the stripping the African family, the woman, the man, whoever, from the child has been one of the primary things to break down the entire African family, to break down any connection that mother has with child, that father could have with child, that parents can have with each other, and really does more to cause emotional harm, physical harm to both the child and the mother and the father. So essentially, like, this whole question of the capitalist state is rested on the destruction of the black people in of itself, not just physically, but mentally and through every way imaginable, including the extraction of children from the home, which does more than just takes the children away, but it causes emotional damage throughout the entire family. The entire family is affected. The mama, the grandmama, the uncles, the aunties, everybody is affected by the taking of a child. Whether they believe the state is in right or wrong, it causes the family to split, and there's so much destruction within our family because of that one thing. Uhuru.
Uhuru. All right, yeah, like, you spoke to, like I said, the relationship between the family and the foster care system and things like that. What are some ways in which UNWO seeks to, UNWO sort of upholds the struggles of African mothers and African families here in opposition to that genocidal system?
So we have a campaign which falls under the Africans Charged Genocide campaign, which is called Arrest CPS, and this has been a campaign that we've been doing for the last 3-4 years. The process of doing this campaign is really allowing African mothers to come into organization in a certain kind of way. We want them to join AMWO, but we also want them to know that they are not alone. What we've discovered since starting this campaign is that the way in which the state takes the children is very much the same way in many capitalist countries. You can go as far as someplace you've never heard of before, Norway, and where African people are like, negative 1% of the population. And it's the same thing. African mothers are first, their children are taken for some sort of, complaint or what the state deems as threatening the safety of the child. But first of all, we have to really examine this whole question of the state. Because I think that's really important. We don't want to just make this a discussion of abstract oh, the mother might or might not have. If we listen to the chairman and what he's saying in terms of like how the capitalist system emerges and how the system, that everything within that system dialectically supports capitalism, capitalist colonialism, then we cannot be surprised that institutions such as schools, as the child welfare offices, hospitals are there to support the capitalist state. So when we think about how children are removed in our communities, one of the things that we have to really combat is the way that the community responds when African mothers have their children taken. It's a fence like that they try to straddle on, because first of all, people want children to be safe, but they don't understand that the state is not there to make our children safe. They're not there to rectify the bond of mother and child or to help fix any contradictions within the home. Their primary focus is to get the child out, because the state has financial motivation for taking children. Just like they did during the enslavement of African people, that children were held as a financial children were money. Before there was paper money, especially in the South, children were actually people, human beings, African human beings were money, children were interest, because children couldn't work, so they would just give them to another slaveholder in order so that they can be interested, so that when they grow, they can become a worker. And so I think that when we talk about this system and how it developed, that we cannot at all give any leniency to the state about the welfare of our children. That's just not the way the state works. We recognize that there are contradictions within our community. Chairman laid it out. Colonialism impacts African people. African people walk around, they murder each other and things like that, and that there are contradictions between mothers and child, women and men, all of that end up being very physical or some other type of contradictions that primarily result in the removal of children, which is not violence, which is mostly poverty, not having enough. Not even drugs is one of the highest things. It is the fact that you do not have enough in the home. And but there's no attempt in real life to help resolve it. They just say, take the children. Now you go ahead, even though you ain't got no money, go ahead and find an apartment that you can hold the children in, even though you don't have no resources in the first place. That's why you're there in the first place. There's no assistance in that. There's also this pull to mark African mothers as mentally unfit. And when you get into the system, one of the first things they ask you to do is to take a mental evaluation. And of course, you just got your children taken, so when you go on for a mental evaluation, you are all sorts of out of whack mentally. You are in angst. So AMWO, as an organization, to go back to the question, is about helping African mothers understand that they are not isolated, and that there are ways that you can fight against the system. And we ultimately know that no matter how many fires we put out through this campaign, that the ultimate thing we have to do is overturn the whole damn system so that we can have a true restorative process for where we are caring for our families. And within the context of Arrest CPS, we say that the community has to rise to the occasion as well. That if we see African women who are in trouble, the first thing is not to go and call the state, but to actually go into her, talk to her calmly, and say, listen, I see that you're struggling. What can I do to help? And that's how we emerge as a socialist society, not just by accepting that the state is there to take care of our problems, but how can we as a community help resolve some contradictions that may be evident in our community. So that's how AMWO is thinking about the Arrest CPS, and what we've done so far is really organize protests, help to highlight the state as the state is not a helpful instance to empower African mothers with their stories and say, listen, you can use this to challenge every single thing. And some of the issues there are complicated because, when you have your child in the hands of the state, it's really difficult for you to make some sort of bold moves. But we work with the mothers to help them do whatever they can in those instances.
All right, thank you, Yesterday. Now move to Dr. Fields. Is Dr. Fields okay?
That's fine.
Okay. I know. I'm messing with you. No. So Aisha, Yesterday talked about something that I think you're going to talk about as well. This understanding of mental, this sort of mental fitness, right? We know that mental fitness is one way through which the state conspires to steal black children from black mothers and black families, right? But we also understand that the Article 2 of the 1948 resolution, Section C, says that genocide is deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about physical destruction in whole or in part, but also causing serious bodily or mentally harm to members of the group. So what are some ways through which you can expand on the actual real and even material sort of effects of genocide amongst African people?
Uhuru. Yeah, thank you for that question, comrade. And I really appreciate the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement and my comrade and leader, Comrade Kalambayi and Annette, for this tremendous convention. And I'm very appreciative to have the opportunity to sit on this panel. And what I want to contribute to that question really is to maybe take a step back first and just deal with some of the concrete ways in which the U.S. government specifically has perpetrated genocide against African people, okay? So just like we saw, just like the brother stated, in Article 2 of the Convention of the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, which was adopted by the General Assembly of the UN on the 9th of December, 1948. Genocide means, and I think it's important to hear this again, because even without me saying a word, every African knows, once you hear this, that genocide has been and is being committed against African people. And any honest person who is not an African, who looks at the world through the eyes of a human being, will know without any statistics that to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group, such as killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group, right? Okay. So these things, again, have been systematically done to African people around the world, okay? And U.S. government policy at all levels has perpetrated genocide against African people, affecting everything from the food that we eat to the very air that we breathe, okay? African people suffer more from almost every single disease that exists on the face of the earth, including right here in the U.S., where African people are at least 50% more likely to die prematurely from heart disease and stroke, and where the life expectancy of African people is at least 7 years less than white people. Now, if African people run farther, jump faster, think faster, dance better, do everything better, and I mean, this is just a reality, than white people, what would make you think we should have a life expectancy 7 years less? Unless there wasn't something very serious and systematic happening that intervenes to create that situation, okay? So African people on the continent of Africa, where all life originated, have like a 10-year difference, not just from white people, but from the overall global average life expectancy, where African men have an average life expectancy of 61 years, compared to 70 for the average global life expectancy. And African women have an average life expectancy of 64, which is compared to 74 years for the average woman globally, and that's 2018 statistics, okay? So now, we look at certain things like, you know, we hear people talk about food deserts, for example. And some of the terminology that I think food justice advocates are using now is like food apartheid, which they're trying to use to attempt to bring this question of this being a systematic as opposed to a happenstance, that African people find ourselves living in communities all over the world where access to decent food that's not expired, that's not some kind of fast food that is going to lead to diabetes and stroke and all kind of other situations, that's somehow not just by happenstance, but this is based on government policy that creates the conditions for African people to not have access to food in their communities. And one of the things that the U.S. government did to create such so-called food deserts in African communities is something called redlining. Y'all familiar with redlining? Okay, redlining, for those who might not be familiar, is something that the U.S. government under the Federal Housing Administration began doing in the early 1900s, where they would provide loans to working class white people to be able to receive homes at very, very low interest rates, and as a policy, deny them to African people and other colonized people off rip. Whether you had the money for the mortgage, whether you had anything else, the federal government said black people could not get those things. So they started drawing maps. They would say, okay, this is an area primarily of African people. They would outline this map in red, and they said this area right here is a risky area. So that means the insurance is going to be high there, which means businesses will find it hard to be able to come in there and get insurance and do things. So, of course, there are no resources. Of course, there's no grocery stores in a community that is being told now by the bank that they can't open up a business, that's being told that the insurance is going to be too high. So now when you overlay, and if they've done this recently, when you look at a map of so-called food deserts and you impose on that the redlining maps, you see the same thing. Wow. It's the exact same map. So a food desert is something that was deliberately imposed on African people by the U.S. government, period. U.S. government policy. And by giving those loans to white people, now white people have the ability to have wealth, accumulated wealth that was subsidized by the U.S. government, that then allows them to send their children to college, give them health insurance, when they die, pass it on so that their children can have. And so that's generational wealth that's created by the U.S. government policy for white people, and generational poverty that's imposed on African people. So once you have a situation where now, I mean, there are so many other directions that can come at, but just looking at that one policy, now African people living in communities that don't have basic kind of things and don't have the resources to be able to give our children and our families and our communities what we deserve. In places like the Caribbean, U.S. government policy, for example, like under, what was the first black president's name? Not Barack Obama. What was the other first black president? Y'all remember, Clinton. Don't act like y'all didn't call him the first black president. Act like y'all don't remember that. The real first black president had a policy where he made it such that rice from Arkansas, wasn't he from Arkansas? That rice from Arkansas was dumped on Haiti, where African people in Haiti had their own rice economy. They could feed all of Haiti and then some. Dumped subsidized rice from Arkansas into Haiti, totally crushing the ability for African people in Haiti to be able to sustain this economy. Now they pour this terrible rice that's not even nearly as healthy as the rice that was grown there in Haiti, destroying the economy, and then creating situations where now African people in Haiti have diabetes and stuff like that because we're eating the same crap rice that African people here have been forced to eat. So these are some kind of the real policies that the U.S. government, not greedy, quote-unquote, corporations or individual white people who might hate us and want to do us harm, but actual policy of the United States government that has created these situations among African people. And there's so many things, but I just want to say maybe one or two more things that we may or may not be familiar with. Everybody here is probably familiar with the Tuskegee experiment, of course, right? Where the United States government gave more than 600 African people, men, syphilis without telling them anything, and then just watched them for 40 years. Even after a cure for syphilis had been, discovered, giving them syphilis. Now, that wasn't the only time the United States government has done this kind of thing to African people. We can look at the Holmesburg prison in Philadelphia. Has anybody heard of that book, Acres of Skin? Where they talk about what the United States government did, the prison system in Philadelphia, where they partnered with like Johnson & Johnson and the Army and the CIA and other corporations, U.S. Corporations in the United States and U.S. agencies, government agencies, to conduct skin tests on African prisoners in this particular prison. We'll highlight Holmesburg Prison from 1951 to 1974. They even had like radioactive isotopes that were put on African prisoners. They did all kind of horrible skin testing that killed and maimed and tortured African people for more than 20 plus years. And the only reason why they stopped is because there was a leak. They didn't stop because it was their policy, now we're going to stop doing this. They stopped because it was leaked and it had to reverse that. But half of the states in the United States had at least one prison that was doing the same thing. And Pennsylvania led the pack with 10. So this wasn't an isolated situation where African people were being used as human guinea pigs for the United States government to be able to create more resources at the expense of our health and our livelihood. So there are 1,000 different things we talk about. I'll leave it at that. But if we're not convinced at this point that the United States government is not just attempting, but is actively perpetrating genocide against African people, then what would it take to come to that conclusion? And more than that, what are we prepared to do about it?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Fields, because one thing that I think you really touch on in your response here to this question is the centrality of African internationalism as a way to actually understand that struggle against genocide, because of the fact that, you know, we're not talking about, because we understand that the struggle is against colonialism, right? And that through that way we can understand the way that the food deserts that people might call food deserts in the United States are linked to the crises of food and resources in other parts of the world where Africans live, or whether it be Central Africa or Haiti. And President Kalambayi. Right, President Kalambayi, you've spoken on the fact that 2 of your brothers were taken by way of horizontal violence. Can you speak to us how is that genocide, and how do things such as maybe the colonial school system teach us self-hate in a way through which it really overdetermines that that horizontal violence, which over influences that horizontal violence, which has taken so many of us so many Africans from this earth right now.
Uhuru.
Uhuru.
I really want to salute and appreciate 2 people that I really appreciate, the other 2 panelists. So the word, you know, I think that is important, that the reason why we felt that this panel was important, and the word genocide and what we're trying to do and accomplish and win here is for the masses of African people to use a word that they never intended for us to use. You know, it's no way that a word can come up and a definition has been laid out without seeing African people. No people have went through what African people have been through. You know, bottom line. You know, that's the actual truth. And so what we want to do here is to exploit and for people to be able to have this discussion on every level in our communities, using their definition. I mean, we're not even trying to make up anything else. You know what I'm saying? We're just using what they said. You know what I'm saying? This is what you said, and this is African people. And we're not thinking that the United Nations or any other part of the state apparatus can grant us anything. It's what my comrade said, what are we prepared to do? Because when the masses of people take the word genocide and own it, then we know what that means. It means revolution. And so the question for me was around, I'm going to start with self-hate. Is one of the things that they talk about if you read this whole article, which is long, around self-hate. And the thing about self-hate is that I was at AppDep's convention where a panelist had spoke, and it hit me so deep that I thought that self-hate started when I went to their schools. But really, self-hate started in my mother's womb. As Comrade yesterday had laid out, that how this whole colonial system starts and sits on an African woman's womb. What the panelist was saying, science proves that a mother feels and the baby feels and hear better underwater than it do on earth. Before it even breathe, it hears better in its womb, in the mother's womb. And so colonialism affects African people from the time that we are put in. I mean, from the man that the sperm come from, and you know how babies are made. I don't think nobody needs a science lesson here, maybe some, but nevertheless, we all understand that, And so self-hate starts from the time the baby is in your womb, from everything that you experience as an African colonized person. And then, from the time that baby breathes in the room with all these white doctors and how they force us to have babies, what I'm saying? So self-hate, like it's no way around it. So when I meet African people that try to make me feel like I was the only person on earth that felt this self-hate, I say you a lie, because I don't know how you didn't experience this. You know what I'm saying? From Africans, and I thought that only from my experience of self-hate happened to me here, but Africans on the continent are faced with this as well, where they force them to learn a certain education in the colonial schools that teach them that the white settlers came to help. Yes. And teach them that the Africans here hate them. You know what I'm saying? And so like self-hate is deep and profound. From the way African women tortured ourselves with relaxers, to get our hair straight, to get a job. Like literally I wanted to go natural. So I went natural, and I went on interview after interview in fashion industry and could not get a job. You know what I'm saying? As is a trend now, but it wasn't, you know what I'm saying? And I could not get a job. And it was very aggravating that I could not get a job, because my hair was natural, till I got a relaxer, no lie, like the next day I got a job. And this one lady, she said to me, I really like you, you interview well. She's like, but do you think you could soften your look? And I was like, soften my look? What do you mean, soften my look? So like throughout, from the music industry, none of us are making Beyonce rich. Like we are not making Beyonce. The African working class is not deciding that we want a Jay-Z. The ruling class give you that. They teach you a social system. It's a social system. I don't know, one day it just hit me. I was laying in the bed as chairman was telling me we had to build a social movement, and I was trying to wrap my head of what that really mean. You know what I'm saying? And that, like social, like everything that we do, from the way we eat, the way we move, how we socialize with each other, is being impacted by a social system that rests on us. And so every aspect of your life is impacted by that. So that drives me to talking about, horizontal violence. And, some people will point their finger and say, where are you at when Africans kill Africans? You're always talking about the police, but what about us? And obviously you don't understand why I sit here and call myself a revolutionary, because I hate the idea that I had to sit on the cruise with two of my brothers that I ate with and slept with, and they were my brothers. I love them. They were my heart. And it broke my heart to sit there. I could not understand that. But I understand that it's a social system, that everything strategically, as both of the panelists laid out before me, a great analogy, like everything that's placed in our community is strategically there for our demise.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? My brothers did not decide and say, you know what, I want to sell dope. I just want to sell crack. That's what I want to grow up and do. Like, yes, I was there. You know, my dad came back from Vietnam where he was drafted, you know what I'm saying? And he came back dealing with issues with what he's seen over there, fighting a war that was not his war, and he understood that. And he could not deal with the reality of what horrible things that America had did to Vietnam people as they lost their war, the gross things that he did that he still to this day could not talk about. And, you know, dealing with Agent Orange and him being a Vietnam vet and going to, you know, the hospitals and them not giving him the treatment that he needed, you know, them diagnosing him because they didn't want to pay him, so they wanted to give him diagnosis like, you schizophrenic, you bipolar, you know, because they wanted to not deal with what they had done to their own soldiers. And so that contradiction, you know, affected all of us, from even my mother conceiving babies. Each one of us, I had a heart attack at 29, and that's because of Agent Orange. Everything that I have ever dealt with, from dealing with the issues that I dealt with in the school system with learning disabilities, etc. My sister, all of us have issues from Agent Orange that we still don't get paid for, that white soldiers, kids, and families benefit from. So they misdiagnose us because we colonize, you know, and we fight their wars, and then they do not do what they're supposed to do for their soldiers. And because of that, my brothers decided that they were tired of seeing their sister and their mother not having food and have to move from, you know, not being able to pay the rent and being homeless. So they decided, like, okay, we can't get a job at 14, you know what I'm saying, but we can sell drugs. And so they went to the streets to make a way of living, and they strategically put the dope in our community. Yes. You know what I'm saying? And yes. My brother, Alan, was given drugs by the police as a young man. And they seen that he was smart, and he was sharp, and he was a leader, you know, and even the streets of St. Louis say that he was the most gentle, big time dope dealer that it is. You know what I'm saying? Because he wanted everybody to make money. And so he thought that once I bought my mom a house and got her out the hood, and went to North County, then that was it. So he had a full-time scholarship to college. And when he told the police, I can't sell dope for you no more, I can't do this, I don't want to no more, he laughed at him and said, ain't no way out of this. And my brother told my family, you know, that he told us, he said, I'm gonna be dead within a week. Within that week, he was dead. He knew it. They picked him up and dropped him off from hood to hood. So what I'm saying is they create the environment. You know what I'm saying? They create the environment. Pork. You know what I'm saying? These are two different communities that's selling drugs. And then they, you know, picked my brother up and dropped him off here. No one has paperwork to say he was snitching or anything like that, because my brother said, I would rather be dead than with people did not have on ski masks. They didn't take their license plates off their car. They chased him down, ran him into a 18 car, you know, underneath. They got out the car with guns, pulled his body, you know, pulled him out of the backseat of the car and shot his body and put bullets in his body in broad daylight. Witnesses gave them the license plate number of the car, identified each person that they seen that got out the car, which were all Africans. Nobody went to jail. This is genocide. Like, everything that's placed in our community is there strategically. So you tell me that I supposed to be angry with the 3 Africans with the guns that shot him? No, I want to take down the whole system that created the environment that set it all up. You know, my other brother, you know, was murdered. And, you know, like, I sat in a courtroom with jurors. This time I said, okay, this is different. We went to court. I sat there, I really wanted to understand how it all worked. I sat in the courtroom. I looked at the man that killed him. I looked in his eyes. The judge was there. The jurors, from the whole thing was falsity. They never ever was gonna lock anybody up. My brother went to college. He wanted to do the opposite.
Hey,
He decided that,
Oh, excuse me, sorry. There's a silver Camry blocking the chairman's parking spot. If anyone has a silver Camry, can you please move your car so the chairman can park? I'm seriously apologize for the interruption.
anybody that had the silver Camry, if you can move your car. And so what I was saying is, this whole system. So we got to the court, and I looked this man in his marble eyes, and from one of my classmates' mother was called to be a juror. And so she was like, don't say anything, I'm here. But she was so hurt at seeing how they even picked the jurors. And Chairman talked about the Black grand jury, and that's why I wore this T-shirt, is that we want to really win. InPDUM is going to launch a whole campaign where we have to learn how to be jurors. We have to learn how to ask the questions. White people have been doing this for a long time. They make it a whole career out of making sure that they lock Africans up by being jurors. And she was saying how they were strategically trying to make sure that they had a certain jury to make sure that this man that murdered my brother did not go to jail. And so from beginning to this whole system, the creation of it and everything about it is genocide. And it's never intended to offer us any kind of justice at all. And only thing that what we have to do is build a revolution and teach people how to put pressure in the belly of the beast. And so when we're talking about teaching people how to be a juror, we want to force people to be on that jury to give them hell for them not to be able to do business as usual. My brother Curtis was locked up for 27 years and was 18 and shot by the police, body thrown out of the hospital, and was locked up for 27 years because they said he had a piece of crack, that they put on him. And so, as we see all these different, my time is up, but basically throughout the story that I'm saying is that we have to see genocide when we talk about horizontal violence. And the only way that we can ever overturn this system is to make a revolution, because, horizontal violence is self-hate. Anytime that you don't know who you are and everything has been ripped from you, your name, your identity, literally everything. They give you somebody else's name, somebody else's religion, and it's easy to pull the trigger on self. I heard Chairman, and it's just always stuck with me, how they always shoot real good at each other. But the minute we see the police, we drop the gun went somewhere, they had a gun, but they didn't shoot it, or it was in the back seat, or the hands was up, or whatever, and that's strategic, and they know that, and they know that. And so when we have all the people that are asking for the National Guards to come in, we have to see that as an enemy of the people. Who calls their enemy and asks them to come in? You know what I'm saying? And say, they got guns, we have to have bigger guns. All these things are things that we have to, really understand the word genocide, so we can take this to every household, to every community where we are, and say this is genocide. Uhuru.
Uhuru. All right, everybody, let's give it up one more time. Let's make it loud. Uhuru. Uhuru. So once again, I want to thank the panel. I want to thank yesterday Oromila, Aisha Fields, and Kalambai Andanet. There's one way which I really think they all drove in together the multifaceted ways through which Africans experience genocide, and offering an African internationalist perspective of this genocide that we face. One thing I was thinking, and then we're going to pass it over to Brother Jason, is that this self-hate, right? You talked about self-hate. There's the material basis to the self-hate, right? I mean, all you have to do, they talk about the Del Mar divide here, right? And you can literally travel hundreds of feet and see a complete different material reality of European life and African life here in St. Louis. And what does that, and one thing, just understand that, that clearly reinforces white power and the superiority of white power. So there's a clearly, because sometimes there's ways where some people talk about the sort of self-hate, and it's this sort of idealistic, sort of mystical thing, but no, right? We understand that they've constructed an African reality and a European reality so that the European reality, no matter how genocidal it is appealing to us and things like that, which produces those different systems. So thanks again, everybody, and I think we're going to move towards the workshop. Oh, Q&A. Okay, perfect. Q&A. And so let's go ahead and open this up to Q&A. Like I said, this is absolutely amazing. Uhuru. Okay. Then was like, don't touch that mic.
All I need is one mic.
Uhuru. Yeah, I appreciate the whole, the whole panel, the whole discussion, but in particular, I'd like to address yesterday, Comrade yesterday. In the course of maybe about 10 days, like our last meeting, before our last meeting, I was doing outreach. I bumped into a sister. She was on the verge of tears. They just took her child, her 12-year-old. And then, like a little bit before, a few days before that, I found out about the cops had rushed into the projects and, was threatening to take this woman, blah, blah, blah. In terms of the whole situation about, people's children getting snatched and so on and so forth, I've been hearing you talk about that for a while now. So I really probably need to get with you and find out, a little bit more about, what you've covered and how I can present it to the people and so on and so on. But could you give us some information about, like, how to deal with situations where people's children have been taken and so on, for the sake of the people that I'm working with out there in New York?
First of all, what I'm about to tell you is not something that I made up, but this is something that came from actual mothers who have gone through this. First of all, we have a Know Your Rights booklet on our table for somebody who you can distribute in our community to women, men, anyone who might be in danger of their children being taken. And it's just 5 simple steps before yes, comrade. 5 simple steps that will keep the state at bay. And stuff like, just like if you're in a car, you stop by the police, don't open the door, don't talk to them, don't do anything, don't give them don't sign any papers, anything, because most times that you're in the heat of the thing, you're like, just want my child back, and you just like sign like, yeah, and then you pretty much sign them over to the state. So, but when you're in it, one of the things that one of the mothers have told me is, she says, don't sign anything. No matter what the state is, even if they have your children in custody, do not sign any paperwork from them. Because once you sign the paperwork, they have record of you agreeing to whatever it is that's on they don't have a paperwork saying that she thinks that this is unfair. They have a paperwork that says that she is admitting that she is at fault. Every single paperwork that the state produces will, in some way, shape, or form, justify their case against you. So that's one thing. Appeal everything. Everything. Appeal everything. Whatever decision that is coming down the line to you, you as an individual human being can go down and do your own personal appeal of the state. So we just got a call from this sister in St. Pete. They've been hearing the commercials around Arrest CPS, and they reached out. And I spoke with her, and I had another couple contact me, and they didn't keep any records of their paperwork from the courts. And I'm just like, you got to keep everything. These mothers that I've been working with for years, they have booklets of every single decision that was ever made in their case, and they could pull it out, they tab it. Keep your records. Appeal everything. You can go down to the courts, get the paper, and appeal it. ultimately, we want you to make a revolution. We want you to understand that this is not like going back and forth with the court is not going to be the thing that's going to liberate all African children from the state's custody. And in some cases, when your children are in the state's custody, you are less inclined to do anything because you feel helpless. But within their own laws, you can do as much as you can within their own laws that won't threaten your custody. You can appeal every decision that the state comes down with you, just so that you have a record that you do not agree with what was happening. So you should appeal everything. So I would think the major things is keep all your records, know that you can appeal, get a lawyer, and we're trying to really help secure real lawyers that can help sisters, because these court-appointed lawyers, everywhere they ain't nothing. They work for the state. They're in collaboration with the state. So I would say if you can't afford it, get your own lawyer or work with somebody who can help you get a lawyer, or just get advice from a lawyer who knows the family courts.
Uhuru, comrades, it was really powerful, all your testimonies, and you're really putting everything on the table for us to understand. I have I think one observation, and I wanted to share and get your thoughts on it. That was not discussed today, I thought. I might be wrong. Was also most of the, I'm in the medical devices field, so there is also research which says that African people are not trusted when they go to the doctor. Healthcare services are not rendered on the same basis when a white person says they have a small body ache. They give more importance to what that body ache is compared to if African people who basically have a health condition which might be a cardiac, pulsating, a heart or something like that, they would always put it on something else and try to blame something else for it. That I think should also be part of what we call as genocide. And the other one that I also wanted to talk about is when we have examples like Flint, there are chemical sites which are poison, and most of them are not treated with the same way. If it's a white community is affected, they treat it much more differently. The compensations are way different. Whereas if it's an African community, or working class African community especially, the government, the judicial system, whatever is in place, does not act upon it with the same significance. And I think these two should also be part of what we call as genocide.
Uhuru, I really appreciate both of those. And we seen that in Flint, Michigan. InPDUM, we went into Flint, Michigan, and we took water, but more importantly, we wanted to take the African short genocide petition there. And what we seen, and you can watch the testimonies yourself on African short genocide, when we talked to the residents there, they were more interested in our petition on genocide than the actual water. They said every celebrity has been here with a Photoshop and, bringing water in, but no one is, talking about that this is genocide. And as we started talking and assessing the situation, we seen that one side of Flint, Michigan, which is white Michigan, Flint, was all white. We went to this restaurant, nobody's affected about no dirty water. So we wait a minute, we thought Flint, Michigan had dirty water, but black Flint, Michigan had dirty water. The white people, they were so then they said, like you said, they blamed something else. They was well, the black people have to put new pipes to pipe themselves into the new water. And they had to, get somebody to dig into the ground and put new pipes in the ground. And so that's why today when I see these hashtags of people saying Flint, Michigan still have dirty water, I want people to really understand that, what's happening there is they allowing these residents, they won't even, so if you live in apartments and you on Section 8, it's your responsibility to dig a hole in the ground and put yourself with some new water. That's what they telling these people in Flint, Michigan. They're not telling that that's not a slumlord that won't, solve the problem. The government haven't solved the problem where it all began in Flint, Michigan. And then also, they said they keep telling people that we could be tested by lead. They were telling us about people that had never did drugs, now acting, real crazy by the water, being affected by the water. They said because before the water came out dirty, it had a smell to it, and people were complaining. People were getting sick. The babies were getting sick. Babies were dying. And they were saying that, something is, being affected by it's affecting their brains. And the scientists that's going in are only studying it for white power. You know what I'm saying? They is not studying it for the benefit of African people, in Flint, Michigan. And we seen that in St. Petersburg, Florida, when the government allowed dirty water because he wanted big developers to continue to build on the south side and make these high-rise. And he didn't care that it was going to affect the people, because who's going to really get the bad end of the stick, the black community. And so you are right, and even the work that ABDEP did in Sierra Leone, all these, if we can have our own scientists and benefit for ourselves, then we will be able to solve these issues. But we always, because we colonize, we always have to work for somebody else's benefit and not the benefit of ourselves. And that's why ABDEP is important, to win that sector, doctors and scientists and people with those skills. So everything that they have went to school for is not benefiting the black community. You know what I'm saying? And this is genocide. Uhuru.
Dr. Aisha has something to say. Do we have time? I just want to really appreciate that intervention and say that, honestly, those two things were things that I wanted to speak on. And part of what I want to offer really is a self-criticism that ABDEP has not become the organization yet that the revolution requires us to be, because part of what we have the responsibility to do is, like Comrade Kalambai said, was to win as many African people as possible who have access to these skills around, science and people in the medical profession and other related areas, to recognize that the skills that they have don't belong to themselves, that they have a responsibility, first of all, to deny our oppressor of our skills, to deny them the skills, period. Even if that means you have to do something else that it has nothing to do with whatever you went to school for. Open a store. Even if it means that. And save those skills for the period when the revolution is going to require those skills. And for when the development of Africa is what is the responsibility of African people. There's going to be a day where all those skills, they might not be immediately easily identifiable as something that the revolution requires today, but a liberated Africa is going to require those skills. And we have a responsibility to challenge and be in every space. I've run from all the spaces that I recognize as these bourgeois spaces where they were trying to create petty bourgeois African sellouts. But now I think the period is here for us to run into those spaces, and win as many Africans as possible to recognize that they have to do that. They have that responsibility.
We're going to have one more question, and I just want to everybody just see the magnificence of these. Even when we do produce things, it ends up being siphoned out towards outside of the African community, because you hear a lot of sort of petty bourgeois movements to say grow what you eat, or community gardens. Then you go to the community garden and you try to take a tomato, and they're like, oh, actually, we're going to sell that to Walmart. What do you mean you're going to sell it to Walmart? I thought this was a community garden, right? seriously, you got people talk about, this is a workers' co-op. There's a coffee shop, even starting in San Diego, and they say it's a workers' co-op. Oh, so it's a workers' co-op. What's the relationship with the community? Well, about 4 or 5 of us going to take the money back out to our houses that live outside of where the Africans live. It's like, it's not a workers' co-op. That's a cartel. That's a conglomerate. That's not a workers' co-op, right? So some people think if you just got a group of petty bourgeois Negroes taking all the money, that's a workers' co-op. You know what I mean? So I just want to sort of lift you all up in what you're talking about, because we could take that sort of grow what you people, the petty bourgeois ideas of grow what you eat, and like you said, place that onto in Haiti or in Jamaica where they make the farmers dump out the resources that the United States no longer wants. So thank you. I'm going to pass it to Brother Jason. One more question, right?
Uhuru, just the same, I wanted to salute y'all. My leadership will run through your leadership, so don't even play. This question specifically for you, Columbine, and of course, if y'all want to answer. I was kind of, when you started talking about horizontal violence, it just kind of made me start thinking about, just how everybody, it's kind of like that whole thing of when we talk about slavery, and then white people would be like, well, your people sold your people to us, you know what I mean? And so, but it's the same thing with like black on black crime, you know what I'm saying? When we talk about vertical violence, the system coming down, killing African people, then you guys are killing each other. I just really wanted you, because
I don't know. I always say analogies, and if a whale have bad breath, and you give the whale a Tic Tac, they ain't gonna do nothing. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, to me going to a march, not my sons, it's like, what is that doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, putting a sign in my yard that say we must stop killing each other ain't stopping nobody from killing, because do you understand why we shoot each other? You know what I'm saying? Do you know how I got an attitude when I come home? You parked in my spot and I don't say something to you. You don't say something to me because we mad, because we got bills and we angry all the time, and now we done popped off at each other, or the police brought me in and said you snitched on me, or just all the things that happen, you know what I'm saying? Families taking a gun on each other, you know what I'm saying? Everything, like all the contradictions that cause us to shoot each other. Yeah. The only contradiction that made sense ever in my life is to understand that I'm colonized. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That's what created the environment that sets up for horizontal violence. So simply marching in a march, I can't even unite with these people. Like, you don't make sense to me at all. Like, so we gonna march for horizontal violence? What? I mean, you ain't said nothing about a job. You ain't dealt with any of the core contradictions. And so the only solution is to overturn the whole system. So it's like giving a whale a Tic Tac. It don't make sense.
Because to add to that, your answer on horizontal violence, and there's other forms of horizontal violence that African people experience. I want to lift up Annual, right, and understanding this. We think about the violence against women, the violence against sort of non-gender conforming people or same gender loving Africans and things like that. And there's a liberal, petty bourgeois way through which we're told to deal with, say, maybe African men or African people who do this violence against women and stuff like that. But maybe just very briefly, how can we understand that we have to deal with these contradictions, but through a sort of African internationalist perspective and not a, say, bourgeois liberal perspective?
I mean, bourgeois people are going to believe that they can fight patriarchy, and then once that's done, they're going to live under capitalism, just holding hands and singing la-la songs. But the ultimate way that we fight that sort of horizontal violence, and I just want to say horizontal violence is women on women, men on women, women on men, mothers on children, fathers on children, children on, it's all throughout the colony. Like violence is prevalent in the colony because we are colonized. And so when we take on this whole question of horizontal violence, that we have to understand that we are colonized first, and the colony breeds violence. And the only way to end the violence in our community is to make a revolution, overturn the damn system, and destroy colonialism, capitalism altogether. And that's how we do it. And that's how I talk about horizontal violence all the time, is that this is not some phenomenon just happens between two genders, but that it happens throughout the entire African nation as a result of colonialism.
Thank you. And just to add, because I know we got to end it, is that it's a class question. You know what I'm saying? Because you see this with the petty bourgeoisie. You know what I'm saying? And so you can see them and smell them. I mean, I didn't know that that's what it was. They stink. You know what I'm saying? For real. And they don't make any sense. And it's for their own interests. But the class understand that we too poor. My family, when I came out, like they couldn't get rid of me if they wanted to. We too poor to get rid of each other. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Because it's a class thing. It's a class issue. Uhuru.
One more thing I wanted to say. If you do have to sign paperwork to the state in terms of your children, always sign under duress next to your name so that they have it on record as well.
Yes. Under duress.
Under duress, yes.
All right. Thank you very much. Uhuru.
Fist up. Fist up. Touch one. Touch one. One Africa. One Africa. No surrender. No surrender. Uhuru, give up another round of applause for our powerful leadership. Uhuru, so what we're gonna do now, we about to get practical. We about to get super practical right now. We're gonna bring a brother from San Diego to the stage to do a workshop on the Africans Charged Genocide Tour, which we're bringing all over this country. So I'm gonna go ahead and call Brother Josh Sun to the stage. Uhuru. Hey, thank you, Justin. Y'all got issues too. 'Cause y'all participated in that one. Okay, so this workshop it's real practical. I'm gonna do my best to just roll through it. But basically what we're doing now, we're bringing the Africans Charged Genocide Tour to your city, everywhere. And the goal of this tour is to bring Kalambai and Danette and other leaders of the Uhuru movement just throughout all the different regions. Go ahead and hit the thing. I don't got nothing super elaborate going on with the PowerPoint, but yeah, go ahead, this one. Okay, so what we got going, as we spoke about yesterday, is there's a regional strategy that the party put out. And in this regional strategy, it's, since October, since the Congress, we've seen so much growth in InPDUM. Just really having regional leadership, in the Northeast, in the Midwest, in the Southern region, in the Western region, people that are actually accountable to each region. And so what our goal is now is to bring is to bring the Africans Charged Genocide Tour to all the different regions. So let me see. Go ahead and hit the thing. Okay, the first thing that I want to do is talk about the goals of the Africans Charged Genocide Tour. Now, our goals in every city is to recruit 3 new members into the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, to recruit 10 volunteers, and this is like when this tour comes to your city. Recruit 10 volunteers for InPDUM in each city, recruit members into the African Charged Genocide Working Group, get 100 signatures on the petition through outreach and attendance of the event in each city. We haven't determined how much Uzi products we're gonna sell, but basically to sell. Appreciate y'all. So, but basically to sell $200 worth of Uzi products at every event, sell 5 copies of the Vanguard book, sell 2 bundles of the Burning Spear, and to spread African internationalism throughout the United States in every region. So those are the goals of when this tour comes to your city. Now, okay, so the Africans Charged Genocide is led by the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement and is a part of the International Executive, under the leadership of the International Executive Committee. The main components of the Africans Charged Genocide Tour are the petition in the tour and other aspects, or of the Africans Charged Genocide campaign are the petition in the tour. Other aspects such as research and propaganda will play a crucial role as well. The goal of the Africans Charged Genocide Tour is to bring the charge of genocide into the households of Africans in all regions of the United States initially, and with time and organization, and with time, organization to every area Africans exist in. So basically, the Africans Charged Genocide campaign is focused on, you know, like we were talking about the Flint water crisis. You know, we're talking about in New York, there's a water crisis. In San Diego, there's a crisis at the border, as Comrade Michael Odom was talking about. Every city, every area we go to, genocide looks different. And what the goal of this tour is to expose what's going on in every city, what's going on in your particular area, so that we can build up and compile like thousands and thousands of case studies of genocide, so that we can present that to the United Nations and charge the United States of America with genocide against African people. That's what we have to do. And this is something that, you know, we need everybody to participate in. I don't know if any of y'all, is there anybody in here who hasn't signed the petition online? Okay, cool. So there's a petition that we have online, and that's what the petition's about. Kalambayi was talking about it. We've been referring to it throughout this convention, that, you know, there's a winter encampment, and that winter encampment was to put genocide on the agenda of the United Nations when they're talking about reparations. And as Kalambayi said, we were successful in doing that. And so with that, we have a petition online, and our goal is to get 1 million signatures on the petition. All right, our goal is to get 1 million signatures right now. With and I have to be self-critical, you know, just because the petition online, it's like it's a beast in itself. People are continuing to sign it consistently. If you go on there, somebody will sign it 2 days ago, a day before that. But with this tour, the goal is for us to get out in the streets with this petition and get it into the hands of the people. You know, we really need to have the African working class understand that we're facing genocide, and to have that discussion consistently all the time. We should always be talking about how we're facing genocide. Like how Kalambai was talking about with the horizontal violence, and we're talking about the CPS and foster care. And, you know, we have to understand that it's genocide, like no matter what. And, you know, when we polarize the conversation, when we, you know, bring it to that level of understanding, then it's difficult for the state or for the petty bourgeois or anybody to combat that. So, so what I want to do, I'm going to read off a list of cities that where we have different movement forces and where we're going to bring this tour. When you hear your city, jump up and start pop locking. What? if any of y'all do that, but anyway, okay. Washington D.C., Philadelphia, Newark, New York, Boston. See, New York is rowdy. Just they oh, there it's. I knew it. Oh, there it goes. Ooh, that's that. What, as Chairman me saying, that's that big lip, boombox on the shoulders freedom. That's what we fighting for. So we got Chicago, St. Louis, St. Petersburg, Huntsville, Houston, San Diego, Oakland, and and Seattle. Okay, so this is when it's gonna get a little too practical. Let me see. Man, I think y'all got off the hook. Ooh, y'all got lucky. Hold on. This ain't right. Okay, cool. Y'all ain't off the hook. Okay. So, what basically the way we have to do this, you can go ahead and do this. Okay. So the tour in the Midwest region, we have Kalambai and Annette, which basically, when we do the African Charge Genocide Tour, it's really Kalambai is gonna be the one who's gonna lead this charge, who's gonna be coming to everybody's city. And what our goal is when we go to different regions, that we bring different leaders of the movement into the tour in all the different regions. So in the Midwest, we're looking at having Kalambai, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Deputy Chair Onazena Yeshitela, Shapavu Tichara, Penny Hess, representing the African People's Solidarity Committee. Go ahead. In the Northeast, Kalambai, Yejide, Yao, and then I got Chairman, Deputy Chair Onazene, and then basically somebody who's representing the One Africa One Nation marketplace, which I believe is Tiffany Harris. Go ahead. In the southern region, Kalambai, Chairman Omali, D.C. Ona, Akile, Anai, Jesse Neville, Kobina Bantushango, Dr. Aisha Fields, Timba. Next slide. And in the western region, Kalambai and Annette, Chairman Omali, Deputy Chair Onazena Yeshitela, and Bakari Olutanji. I'm not. Okay, because I don't know, honestly, I don't know if I spelled it right, so, and I hate butchering Africans' names. Yeah, that's why. Okay. Okay, I'm self-critical for not spelling the names correctly. So basically, when we go to different regions, this is what we want to build in every city. So basically, when the tour goes to Chicago, we want to have those representatives of the Midwest in Chicago. When we go to here in St. Louis, we want to have those representatives here in St. Louis. And the same thing, and when we go to Boston, we want to bring these different representatives of the Northeast region to Boston. And so basically what that's going to do is it's going to give us the ability to build InPDUM in every city. And that's what our goal is to have branches of InPDUM. After this convention, we really want y'all to really go back to your city, ready to have a tour and ready to build a branch of InPDUM. That's what the goal of this is. So go ahead, comrade. All right, so let's go ahead and in your guys' packets, there's a handout that says Africans Charged Genocide in it. And what this handout is about is, you can go ahead and go to the next one. What this handout is about, this is for you to actually fill out and basically bring the tour to your city. Now I know for sure in Boston we have, where are you at, Dexter? Is Dexter in here? Okay, so in Boston we have Dexter. In Newark we have Ushindi. Newark, Jersey we have Ushindi. In New York we have Rafiq. In Chicago we have Kabula. St. Louis we have Grady Brown. St. Petersburg we have Timba. And I want to say this about St. Petersburg. There's a lot of InPDUM forces that came from St. Petersburg, and I think it would be amazing if one of these younger comrades took the reins on this tour rather than Timba. And I'm thinking, you know what I'm saying, a comrade like Obing or somebody like that, to lead up this tour in St. Pete. In Huntsville, we haven't identified anybody. In San Diego, we haven't identified anybody. Or in Oakland, and in Seattle, we have Demetrius. So basically, if I called your name, that packet that you have, be prepared to fill it out, because we want to get this tour started as early as October. And the way we want to do this tour is we want to go from the Midwest to the Northeast, and then to the Southern region, and then to the Western region. So it's going to just go all throughout the country. Now, in order to build this tour, there's an Africans Charged Genocide Steering Committee which leads the tour, right? And we already have a steering committee that's been in place. We're also going to have an Africans Charged Genocide Tour Committee that's specifically focused on building the Africans Charged Genocide Tour. And that committee is open to all members of InPDUM. So if this is something that, resonates with you and you want to be a part of building the whole tour throughout the country, holler at me. Holler at Kalambai. Just make sure you guys make it known that you want to be a part of planning the tour, in all the different cities. We need people dealing with propaganda, outreach, just all the different moving parts, the logistics, all the different moving parts. We need people to be a part of the whole process. So that's another committee. The other committee is a regional tour committee. So basically in every region, we have to have a committee in every region that's focused on bringing the tour to our different regions, right? And then every city has to have a local tour committee. So basically what that does is it gives us the capability, for one, to raise up comrades into leadership roles. And another thing is to be able to really, really, really focus on your city. That it's not something that's gonna where you're gonna be spread too thin. We want to have as many forces and as many hands as possible working on this in every different city. So that's basically what the structure of the tour is going to look like. So in those packets, you have a contract, right? And it lays it out very, very, very specific, very practical in terms of what you need to do to bring the tour to your city. Something that I wanted to mention is that one of the most difficult parts about building this tour, most difficult parts about building this tour, can you go ahead and skip? About building this tour is the budget part. The budget, like really, really, really building a budget. You know, understanding, and it's in the packet that you guys have, that you know, that we have to have an honorarium in every city to pay, you know, Kalambayi for coming to your city. That has to happen. We have to consider travel. You know, how is she going to get to your city? How are the other speakers going to get to your city? Is it going to be by plane? Do we need to get a rental car? Is it going to be by train, by bus? You know, that's what you got to figure out. Another thing is housing. In every city, you know, how are you gonna house the speakers? Another thing is propaganda, creating flyers, posters, banners, you know, having food for your guests at the event. I know that it's just important, you know what I'm saying, we got to feed each other. And I think that that's something you got to put in your budget. And, but one thing I did want to announce, if all the comrades can be seated and clear the area near the door, it's a security hazard, so we just need everybody to sit down. If you're not visiting the vendors, or if you're not getting any food. Okay, so nobody during the discussion should be visiting the vendors. Okay, so that's important to understand, that you have to create a budget, and those are the expenses, and it's all laid out in the packet. Now, something else that we have to consider is, how are you going to pay for this? How are you going to pay for, you know, how are you going to build a budget? Because it's going to cost at least $750. It could cost as much as $1,000 to build this tour. So some ideas are, you could have fish fries, you could have open mics, you could do online fundraisers. One of the things that I used to do is, I used to go to universities and colleges to get funding. Now, those colleges, they have like millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars designated to do different events. All the different departments, like you got the political science department, you got the black studies department, you got the Chicano studies department, you have the women's studies department, you have the social, you know what I mean, humanity, all these different departments, they all have different budgets. You have the Associated Student Government. And so that's something that I've seen has been very effective, is basically creating like a letter to take to these different colleges, these different departments, and you know, request $1,000, you know, to everybody, and then they'll be like, well, I can't give you 1,000, but I could give you 500, or you know what I'm saying? But that's how we gotta like look at this, is we gotta get these resources to build the African Charged Genocide tour. So okay, and then basically, logistically, we need to set up dates for the tour, the time, the location, you know, who's going to be the point person to contact for the tour, you know, what's going to be the name of the host group or the host organization for the tour. And just the basic information, so that, you know, so we could have like really, really serious organized tours. Now, another thing that's extremely important, and I was mentioning about the different goals that we have for this tour. And another thing that's really, really important to understand is the major local coordinators. Like, you have to have an overall coordinator, you have to have a security coordinator, you have to have a fundraising coordinator, and you have to have an outreach coordinator. And these are like the core people that are going to be bringing this tour to your city. And with outreach, like when I'm saying that the goal is to get 100 signatures, it's not to get 100 signatures at the event. It's actually to get 100 signatures in the process of building the event. So as you're doing outreach and passing out flyers, you have the petition, and you're going out and getting signatures on the petition, and then by the time the event comes, you should already be close to your goal of 100 signatures. So when the event actually happens, everybody got to sign, but, what we have, I think it's like 14 cities or something like that, and so that's, just specifically by building the tour itself, that's 1,400 more signatures. And, but then from that, we put the petition into the hands of the people who come to the event. And, like the same way people are talking about reparations right now, the goal of this tour is for people to start talking about genocide and not, like, it's not even a question. You know what I'm saying? Because I know when I talk to the class, when I'm out in the streets doing outreach on the trolley or the bus or wherever, and I say, that we're facing genocide, and I talk about Africans charged genocide, I've never had anyone say, nah, this ain't genocide. I've never, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's very, very obvious. But as the mass organization for the African working class, we have to be willing to go and take that discussion to the masses. So, so basically, what else is it? So y'all got contracts. Y'all have the logistics paper. You have the report form, which basically, you just report on your progress. Now, honestly, like, one of the most difficult things for me in this movement is like reports. You know what I'm saying? But it's so important to be able to report and be able to hold each other accountable to the progress, because that's how we build the science, by understanding, okay, well, what happened here? How do we do this? What happened in this city? And so when we turn in these reports, it actually gives us, how we need to move next time. So that's why everybody has the report form, everybody has the logistics form, and then also building a timeline. That's another thing that's difficult for me in terms of like really saying, okay, how is this going to take shape? And so we have, and the stuff that I'm showing you, this is like the basic kind of outline, the basic rubric of how this is going to happen. But in terms of a timeline, there's when we form the national committee, we form the regional committee, the local committees, we'll basically show you how to build a timeline. How long is it going to take to actually, like, one of the things that we learn in outreach is that for, and I don't know if anybody can answer this, but for every 100 flyers that you pass out, how many people are going to come to the event? One. So you pass out 100 flyers, one person comes, right? Another thing in terms of science is that it takes people to see things 3 times before it gets in their head and they're like, oh yeah, you know what I'm saying? So you put a poster up on the corner over here, you pass the flyer out to the person, and then they see it on Facebook. So they're like, it's in their head and they're like, okay, I'll be at the Uhuru House. I'll be at the Uhuru House. You see what I'm saying? And so there's a very, very scientific way to approach this process. And as Michael Odom was talking about, in San Diego, the African brothers and sisters from Cameroon recently came to the border in Tijuana. And when they came to the border, what was going on is the Mexican government had a notebook, like a notebook, just a regular notebook that you write on. And that's how they were talking about, how people are going to come into the country, into the United States, is just write your name on a list. So it's a notebook, right? And then on top of that, what I did find out by several people is that if you pay $1,200, then you could get your name higher up on that list. So, and I don't know if y'all know, but if you go across the Mexican border and you don't have ID or anything like that, they're gonna pull you into a side room and kind of like make you scared, and then they're gonna be like, "You got $10?" Straight up. And then you slide them the $10 and they'll let you go across. You know what I'm saying? So it's a very, very parasitic situation that goes on these colonial borders. You know what I'm saying? But what happened is when these Africans from Cameroon came to the border, they started realizing like, yo, they're not messing with us at all. You know, they're not trying to show us anything. They're not trying to let us go in the country. They're not trying to help us anything. So they staged a huge protest. They blocked off all the traffic coming into the United States. And so when that happened, we started getting a bunch of phone calls. People are like, yo, we got to do something about this. And fortunately, InPDUM was able to jump in front of the question before like a bunch of petty bourgeois cats start doing all this weird stuff, you know? And so we got a bunch of Africans together to talk about, at first it was being called, what was it? Something about asylum seekers. That's what it was. Asylum seekers. And so, or immigrants, African immigrants seeking asylum or something like that. So it's kind of like, nah, we're not going to do that. We're going to talk about African unity at the border, because the Africans here on this side need to understand this question as well, because there's a huge, we need to understand the question around the border, you know, because I think that's one of the, you know, we all have unique situations, but in San Diego by Tijuana, one of the issues is like we understand the destruction of that border. You know, we see, you know, like people dying in the desert, you know, where the police come and they go through the deserts and they find water or anything because people leave water out, food, different things, and the cops come, pour out all the water, you know, destroy all the food, and so people die consistently on the border. So one of the things that's important for us is to understand that the crisis going on at the border here from US and Mexico, there's 56 different colonial territories on the continent of Africa. So that crisis that's going on at that border is going on everywhere in Africa. African people, you know, I can't just get up, be in Ghana one day and just go to Zambia or Ethiopia or anything. You know, it's like we should be able to roam freely like that. So, you know, I think what we ended up doing is we started talking to these Africans, and they wanted to do a coalition, like, let's do a coalition around this. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. That's not the party's line. Like, we can do a couple different things. We could build a Black is Back coalition, or we could do an African Charged Genocide working group. And so basically, that's what we're in the process of doing, is building an African Charged Genocide working group in San Diego. And it's gonna expand beyond the question of the border. You know what I'm saying? That's just something that people realize, like, you know, it's like, yeah, you see what's going on right now. When Nipsey Hussle got shot, the InPDUM's membership boosted, because people were like, damn. You know what I'm saying? Nipsey Hussle was talking about colonialism and all this different stuff, and then, man, they've been talking about this forever. So people, again, started calling, come join InPDUM, you know what I'm saying? And so that's the impact of having an African Charged Genocide working group in your city, is that you could bring people into the movement, and they don't have to be a member of InPDUM to be on the African Charged Genocide working group. So it's a very powerful strategy to be able to bring people close to the movement, but not necessarily people that are like ready to jump in and start organizing and become leadership, but they could watch the way we move. They could see how African internationalism addresses these questions. And that's what happens, African internationalism on an international level, because this crisis that's happening in the border, Tijuana and San Diego, it's not only impacting Africans here, Africans in Tijuana, the Africans in Cameroon, in Haiti, but it's happening in, you know, because these Africans are mobbing from Brazil through Venezuela, Colombia, Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico. You see what I'm saying? So you see how you have to take an international approach to actually answer these questions. It's not something where we could just look at the border and be like, okay, well, if we bring Africans in, then, you know, then if they, because that's what we have to tell them, is like, this country ain't shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, you come over here to the United States, it's not like things are just gonna get better and everything's gonna be cool. You're gonna come over here, now you a nigga. You know what I'm saying? That's how the state's gonna look at you. You know what I'm saying? Now you're dealing with the same, you know, and so what they do is when they come over a lot of times, they try to make sure that they don't link up with us. You know what I'm saying? They're like, stay away from the black Americans. You know what I'm saying? And so in San Diego, like, I could tell the Africans who came across the border and have already been, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, because they see and they start going the other way. You know what I'm saying? And so, so it's important that, you know, we look at all these different areas of crisis in our personal cities and build this tour around what's going on in our different cities. You know what I'm saying? Expose these colonial contradictions and then bring the Uhuru movement into your city so that these questions can be answered and you know, the masses can really start pushing the fact that we're facing genocide. So basically what I would love to do is, before we get out of here today, is to basically see if we can, actually we over. But I wanna get some point people, you know, in the cities that we don't have point people in Philadelphia, in Huntsville, in San Diego, in Oakland. Those are the cities that we need point people. So if you're willing to build this tour, if you're willing to take charge of it, then definitely, like I said, talk to me, talk to Kalambai, and we could go ahead and spread the message of Africans charged in the U.S. with genocide.
Uhuru. Uhuru. You know, this tour is going to be very important on how we build InPDUM. And so I just wanted to see by hand the different people that want to go back to their cities and have the tour there. Okay, Uhuru. And so before we leave here, because again, it's so, I want to win. I want to win. Comrade, we want to win.
Uhuru.
I'm tired of, I don't even want to, you know, we want to really, like, you know, hold each other accountable, hold the IEC accountable, and hold these areas accountable to this tour. And so before you leave, I seen, I want Jashawn to write, I seen Detroit, Midwest region, you know, Chipavu, we got Detroit, where the tour will be coming. We got Chicago, St. Louis, okay. And so, and solidarity in the Midwest region, all over, okay. Solidarity want to help build the region. Uhuru, that's great, you know. And so then I'm gonna move to the South, Cobina, and I seen St. Petersburg, Florida. I seen St. Petersburg, Florida.
Yeah,
I want to come to Huntsville.
Yeah.
Yeah. St. Pete and Huntsville, and then the Northeast region. I seen Philly, Boston, New York, and yeah, the one I can't say. I'm gonna practice it when I get there. And I want to come and slay with yesterday in D.C. with AMWO, arrest CPS. The tour is to build the Uhuru movement. You know, that's what we want to do.
Hey, Jordan, I seen you raise your hand, so you down to help build this tour out here?
I mean, yeah. I don't want the names. I want the cities. Okay. Yeah, but you got it. Okay. Okay. Did I miss any cities? Did I miss any cities? Did I miss your city? Did I say your name? Houston. Okay, Houston. West Coast. Okay. San Diego. Seattle. Okay. All right. I wanted to make sure that we got that. And after this convention, we're going to be calling a meeting. And in your packet, the whole packet is there for you. And so some of the work you have to do on the grounds, It's groundwork. So when you go back to your areas, y'all can look at that packet and, you know, sort of seeing like what y'all capable of doing. And then we're going to be putting this calendar together for the Uhuru movement and saying we want to make this tour happen. So I just wanted, that was my, this only in the U.S. This tour is going to be a U.S. tour. Yeah. But we want to expand. That's part of the tour, like to take it even out of just America, but, you know, like to Africa, to the continent of genocide, because that's the only way that they want to have the conversation. And we're not going to allow that to happen. Okay. Uhuru. So I want to give it up for Jashan for all the work that he's been doing around the tour. And he made it real practical, boom, 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 exactly what we have to do to make this tour happen. And we're gonna do it. And we're gonna have this tour go all around, and we're gonna build InPDUM. And like Jashan said, San Diego is an example of them using African Shores Genocide Working Group, where we can build coalitions with other organizations where we might not like nothing else that they say, but they unite with African Shores Genocide. You know what I'm saying? And we can work with them in that way. And that we will teach you that too. You know what I'm saying? Because certain roles that they will have and certain roles that we won't let them have, to make sure that they can't run off with, African Shores Genocide and we ain't scared. Right? Uhuru. Okay.
To the next panel? Okay, Uhuru. Okay, cool. We're about to get more practical. This next panel is, we have a few different comrades from the IEC that are gonna be presenting a panel on branch building. So basically when you couple the tour with the branch building process, we're gonna have InPDUM in every city, like a full branch. So let's go ahead and bring Ushindi Watu to the stage, our outreach coordinator for the International Executive Committee. Hey, give it up for this comrade. We're gonna bring Dexter. How you pronounce your name, comrade? Yeah.
Emlem Wengu. That sounds crazy.
Emlem Wengu.
I don't know what happened to my voice. It's a counterinsurgency happened to my voice. Emlem Wengu.
Uhuru. And then we're gonna bring our comrade Ikemba to the stage. Uhuru.
Uhuru. One Africa. One nation. One Africa. One nation. Uhuru. So what I'm gonna present today is branch building. So branch building, what we want to do is we want to open different branches of InPDUM everywhere, in every city where Africans are. So definition of a branch is a local organization structure that leads and carries out the work of the organization on a local level. The local area of the branch can be a city. More than one city can exist in the same, one or more branch can exist in the same city as well. So like for New York, they can have, when they get enough members, it's because New York is a big area, so they can have a branch in Brooklyn. They can have a branch in Queens. One of the New York members just asked me about that yesterday. So the branch of the organizations report to the state conference, and this is in the larger scale of it. When we have branches all in different cities, then we can start building like an InPDUM state conference as well. You know what I mean? It's like a group of states. So like you see how it's going. It's like organizationally like taking territory throughout the whole state with different branches. And if there is no state conference, the branch reports directly to the international leadership body, which is the InPDUM's international leadership body, the IEC. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about like different ways and different strategies that we have to build your branch. Because what we want you to do is to go out, you know, and the instructions on how to do it has been passed out. And we're going to go out and we're going to build branches. So, you know, I passed out all the instructions and ain't leaving for myself. Give me a minute. But what I'm going to do, oh, yeah, thank you. All right, so here's what we did was we created a checklist, you know, for the work that you do in your area. And once you go through this whole checklist, you can be a branch. And we're going to have a celebration of some areas that did this towards the end of this presentation. So number one is you have required 4 members of the local LEC or local executive committee. So you got to have roles, you know, so you got to have a president, a membership coordinator, a secretary, and an economic development coordinator / treasurer. All memberships are to be current and in good standards. So all your branch, everybody has to be paid up on their membership. All right, number 2 is completed and submitted a branch contract. So the IEC will give you a contract, and you want to make sure that you sign the contract to become a branch. The next thing is when you finalize on becoming that branch, it's a yearly assessment of $50 to the IEC. Some of the day-to-day is you got to have weekly outreach. You got to have ongoing fundraising to sustain your branch. Weekly membership recruitment work, so you got to be recruiting all the time. You got to submit monthly assessments and monthly reports. You got to sell as a branch at least 100 Burning Spear newspaper per month as a branch. And I know in a lot of cities, I mean, we could do more than that. We want to exceed in that. We want the spear in everybody's hand. But the least requirement is 100 spears. You want to submit weekly branch reports and submit your contacts, that's the fight, that's the struggle. You get out there, and somebody's going to speak about outreach and how to get the contacts, but you have to report because the IEC wants to know, you know, that's the way that the IEC can lead. You submit your report, we can see the contradictions, and then we can come up with strategies for each area to go in and, you know, go harder. The next is you want to hold ongoing mass rallies. So you want to have a mass rally. You want to bring the community into the branch building process. The only way that you're going to build your branch is you win the community. They come to me in New York. We'll talk about that later, but it has to be a consistent, ongoing mass rally. Once a month, every other week. If you're really good, once a week. You know, submit. And then you got another big part of this too is submit articles for the Burning Spear newspaper at least once per month, because that's the way that everybody would know what's going on in your city, you know, and the work that's being done in your city and how you solving problems and contradictions. You know, we have these apparatuses like the Burning Spear newspaper to get out to the world. So that's the perfect opportunity to get that out. And also, you want to have a branch consolidation meeting with the IEC, where the IEC will go over your work and then we'll consolidate. We may have some, you know, input on how your branch should look. So with that being said, like I want to segue in a little bit to like how we can do the work in our local areas. And I'm going to call Comrade Dexter up here because he's going to speak to like the propaganda, the flyers, and different type of things that can be done to build your branch locally. Uhuru.
Ooh, comrades. Again, I'm self-critical for this voice. This is bothering me. I know it's annoying for y'all. All right. One Africa. One nation. One nation. One Africa. Right. Okay. So my name is Dexter Mlamwengo. I am the Information and Education Coordinator for InPDUM. Yes, I'm the Information and Education Coordinator for InPDUM. And so we're going to talk a little bit about propaganda. Propaganda, waging the war of ideas. Keep the slide. I'll tell you when it's due. Yes, so, you know, so we're going to talk a little about propaganda and how it's used, how it's been used historically to oppress us, to keep us separated from our resources, to keep us discouraged from struggling for our liberation. And then we're going to talk about how that same propaganda can be used to forward our struggle. So I think the most fitting place to start is going to be, what is propaganda? Next slide. Right. What is propaganda? So when I made this, I assumed I was going to have a better look. Let me move up a little few paces. So what is propaganda? So the Webster says that propaganda is information which promotes or publicizes a particular political cause or point of view. So, with that definition in mind, everything is propaganda, right? Propaganda is everything, and it's everywhere. It's everything that we see, that we hear, everything we hear on the radio, see on the TV, see in the movie. That's the message behind all of those things. And they always have, all propaganda has a political agenda. It's trying to win us to a particular position on a particular matter. And just by virtue of growing up, under white power, all of us colonized, on a daily basis, most of the propaganda that we're taking in is propaganda created by the colonizer, created by white power. I remember a story. I remember years ago. It was about 5 or 6. I remember I came home from school one day and I was like, Mommy, I want to have hair like Eric. Eric was this kid in my class at the time. He had like long blonde hair. And I said, I want to have hair like Eric. His hair is so cool. It's long. I like the color. And my hair is so short at the time. It's just so short and it's hard and it's tough. I just want hair like Eric. Why can't I get hair like Eric? I was mad. I want hair like Eric. But just, imagine having to respond to that question as an African mother, as an African parent. And, I didn't just randomly wake up trying to have hair like Eric. I just, I understand that, I grew up, again, in a society that, for 500 plus years have been telling all of us that blonde hair is the correct hair, right? So, if we can go to the next slide real quick. So, some people might be familiar with this face here. I was going to take it out of the slide. I was got to Dexter, take it out, but no, I said, let me keep it. Because some people you understand already, I didn't even start speaking. So some kids, some people who were kids 15, 16, 20 years ago would remember this from the Teletubbies, right? It was a very popular kids show, baby show at the time. And I thought it was, just significant, just, reflecting on all these things and how does, again, propaganda is used. I mean, just the significance of growing up and watching as a baby and watching a show that tell you that, the sun in the sky was a little white baby. And it may seem kind of silly, but I think it's significant. It's significant because these are all these things that really contribute to how we perceive ourselves and how we perceive this world and our place in the world, right? Yeah, so next slide, please. The colonial media ain't to quote my president. But real quick, actually, before I get into that, just talking about the war of ideas a little bit, right? And I remember it was like a concept that I really used to have trouble really understanding. But it's really not that abstract. It's not. It's not even a metaphor. It's literally a war of ideas, right? And the war of ideas, there's two sides. There's the colonized, right, and the colonizer. And this war of ideas, you have the ideas, the ideologies, the motives, the ideas of the colonizer on this side. And then you have the ones of the colonized on this side. And for 500 years, again, because we are dominated, we've had the ideals and the agenda of the colonizers raining down on us, bombarding us. And, when we engage in this war of ideas, that's when we start taking our own theories and our own ideologies and our own agendas and kind of, this is the best metaphor I can think of, and just fighting back. And that is a war of ideas, in action. So going here talking about the colonial media ain't it says here, the purpose of the colonial media is to produce and, spread the ideas of the colonizer, the ideals of the colonizer. It is to, discourage us from struggling, and it does it in many ways. I think a way that's been very consistent, and overt. It demoralizes us. I know I'm sure many of y'all have heard. I know many people in my life who won't even read the paper, won't even read the newspaper because they're afraid of, seeing some news, someone they know got killed, or even from someone they didn't know personally. Just looking at this paper and seeing another, African killed, or just seeing something horrible that's going on in the world, and just reading it and being reminded every time you read the paper and open the paper that you're colonized, that you are disempowered, that you can't do anything to help your situation or your circumstance, right? And that is a serious role that the colonial media plays. And in doing so, it maintains the status quo, colonial domination. keeping us disempowered, colonized, keeping us separate from our resources, keeping us from unifying, keeping us from organizing in a real serious way. So, hold that, actually. So, as far as the war of ideas, what has consistently been the most vital, crucial weapon of our whole arsenal in this movement has been the Burning Spear newspaper. The Burning Spear, and I can't overstate this. I know Josh Sun said it yesterday. I was kind of annoyed because I was trying to say it first. He beat me to it, though. So, yes, but no, it's been the Burning Spear newspaper, and it's no joke. This is the only media entity that's consistently, as long as it's been around, over 50 years of continuous production, the only one that's consistently upheld the dignity of our people, told the truth to our people, about our people, right? Taught us what we need to know to organize and liberate ourselves in a true way. Consistently does that. So if we can go to the next slide. So just some examples of where the Burning Spear has kept it real. Where the LA Times says police body cams are for restoring public faith in law enforcement, not surveillance. The Burning Spear says black community control of the police, black power in black communities' hands. Next slide. Right, where the St. Louis Post says no charges for Wilson. The Burning Spear newspaper says black people's grand jury indicts Darren Wilson for first-degree murder of Mike Brown, right? Determined guilty in our courts, not their courts, right? Our courts. Next one, please. Right, even Ebony. I know some people love Ebony. I was more of a Jet man myself, but Ebony is cool. So where Ebony says, hail to the chief. I can't see from here, even with glasses. I think it's saluting 8 years of black excellence. Black excellence, right? The Burning Spear newspaper says Barack Obama, 8 years of white power in black face. Next slide, please. Now, this is a very significant campaign, and many of you who are here might have seen this person, Eritha Akile Canyon, and she spoke yesterday on the reparations panel. The campaign to elect Eritha Akile Canyon District 7, right? I mean, these bullet points here are no exaggerations. It's actual fact. She's the first reparations candidate in human history. Wow. That is not an exaggeration. The first one to enter the bourgeois electoral arena with reparations as the main platform of the campaign. The very first one, campaign completely funded by the people, right? It's completely funded by you all, completely funded by us, right? Right? Not the government, not these big companies. The first one. I had a historic win recently, right? Finishing the I don't know the exact terminology, but the qualifiers. Now we're gonna be in the primary, the general election. Yes, November 7th. November 2nd. November. Yes, and yes. But despite this campaign, right? Despite this dynamic, world-changing campaign, there's been a complete media whiteouts on this campaign. And it's interesting. It's interesting because I know, I've seen different articles. I've seen some things that the media in St. Pete, Tampa are reporting on, and it's pawn fronds. And pawn frond, this is the issue where somebody from St. Pete probably can articulate it better than me. But pawn fronds, these the palm trees when the leaves dry up and they fall off, and they're causing somebody trouble on their morning commute to work. This is what Tampa media, St. Pete media, things like trivial BS like this, they're considering themselves. But instead of covering this dynamic campaign, it's very deliberate. It's not accidental. It's purposeful. It's because the colonial media has a vested interest in keeping the people from campaigns like this, right? They have a vested interest in keeping people from this information. It's deliberate and it's very insidious, and that is why the colonial media ain't shh, right? So next panel, please. Right, so back to the Burning Spear newspaper. I want to know who in here is getting a Burning Spear today? That's one hand, that is sad, yo. It's $1. 3 hands for, 2 hands, you're getting 2 spears. Right, and just to speak a bit about African resistance now, in InPDUM, we have the honor of having a monthly column in the Burning Spear newspaper. We just started on the beginning of this year. African resistance now. And what we do with this calling is do what every bourgeois, colonial media entity refuses to do, and which is we give a voice and a platform to the African working class. Right? We interview the people. We, ARN, we say, hey, brother, hey, what's going on? What's up with you? What's going on with you? Hey, sister, what's on your mind? We want to hear what's on your mind. We want to hear what's plaguing you in your day-to-day life, what's difficult. And that's the platform that ARN gives the people that is denied, has historically been denied by the colonial media. So I think it's very significant. I really appreciate Burning Spear for allowing us to have this call. Next slide, please. Okay, so I want to speak a little bit about social media. Facebook is not your friend. Facebook is the police. The police. It sounds better than police, right? The police. You may have 1,000 friends on Facebook, but Facebook is not your friend. Facebook is the police. You go to the next slide. Right, so what Facebook is an instrument of the state. Right, and when we say that, when we say the state, if anyone doesn't know, we mean the government, right? We mean the CIA, the FBI, the police, right? This is what the system, the powers that be, the white power, what uses to enforce its will on us, the states. And it's an instrument of the state. And what Facebook does, you think that Facebook's primary function is to keep us in touch with our high school friends, but actually, the primary function of Facebook is it's information gathering. And Imagine if, you're walking down the street and a stranger walked up to you. You say, hey, yo, what's your name? All right, what's your last name? What's your birthday? What's your hometown? What's your current town? And when are you getting married? I mean, we look at them like they were crazy, but, it's a stranger. But yet, without a second thought, we put all this information on social media, right, to an infinite amount of strangers. The same strangers. We do it without a second thought. We say, oh, it's part of the Facebook experience. No. It's us willingly giving all this information to this entity to take the same information and use against us down the road. And, surveillance. Simple, keep an eye on us, monitoring us. And again, much of this information we give willingly. Used to be you had to write physically write on your Facebook status, I'm here. Now you just click the geotag. Give the exact location, the longitude, the latitude, right? Exactly where you are. We get this information willingly. I'm on the beach with my girlfriend. I'm at the bowling alley with my boys. I don't go bowling, I don't know what I said. But yes, and censorship is very significant. Anybody in this movement knows that we are heavily censored on social media. And I'm talking about Facebook, but really it's all social media. It's all social media. But censorship has been a consistent issue. We've had issues with boosting our posts. You're familiar with boosting posts. You pay X amount of money and you pay, your post gets a much wider reach. More people see it. We've been consistently denied this, right? Consistently denied this. We've had, I've experienced many times seeing Omali Top News, like we just saw this morning. Seeing it with perfect audio and video live, the live stream, and then once it's uploaded to YouTube, I don't know if y'all have noticed, once it's uploaded to YouTube, when you look back at it, you'll see many instances where audio's been completely blacked out. And it's not random. Your computer's not acting up. Your Wi-Fi is cool. It is, again, it is YouTube, which is also another arm of the state. It is Facebook, it is social media, literally going in and meticulously taking out key parts of the information. Key parts of the information. This is not conspiracy theories, And for the next point, attacks. Facebook is used to, in many ways, to facilitate different arms of the state's attack on us. Make it easier. And go to the next slide, please. All right. So Robert Peralta. I believe he was an activist based in San Francisco. What he did, he went on Facebook. He didn't say off the pigs, right? He didn't talk about who he was going to kill. He commented on this other organizer who was attacked by the police. He said something to the effect, hey, that's messed up. We need to do something about this, man. This is messed up. This can't happen. Locked up. They used his Facebook post in court to convict him. Rakim Balogun. Right, it was a very famous case. He was out of Dallas, I believe, or activist out of Dallas. Yes, exactly. Very similar instance to Robert Peralta. He gave his commentary on police brutality, criticized police brutality, criticized the state, and you can't criticize the state using the state stuff. They said, okay, you're making it easy. Locked him up. Corinne Gaines, another famous case. She was an organizer. Consistently criticizing the police, criticizing police brutality, criticizing the state on social media, and she was consistently harassed. If anybody's been following her case, she had been stalked for a long time. She had been, she had been fired from her job. She'd been caught up with her work. Her child was threatened to be snatched from her, Corinne Gaines. And it's what's the word? Standoff that she had where she was barricaded in her house by the police. She said, you know what? Let me live stream this so the people can see what's going on with me, right? So what did Facebook do? Anybody familiar with it? They cut the live stream. We cut the live stream. Then she was dead. Simple as that. Simple as that. Facebook is not your friend. Facebook is the police, right? Next point, please. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about, the role of the artist, in the struggle, and just the culture as a weapon. I remember I was talking to a comrade in this room, actually. I'm not going to say their name, but I was talking to a comrade in this room. We're having some conversation. I said, what's the role? How would you define a revolutionary artist? I was looking for some kind of long-winded, abstract, how would you define the revolutionary artist? That's what I was looking for. He told me, an artist that promotes the goddamn revolution. I said, well, all right. And, it was that simple, but it sounds that simple, but it's not that simple, because you're not going to find any artist that promotes the goddamn revolution anywhere. Outside of Black Power 96, download the app, please. Right, you're not going to find it. You're not going to find it because, again, it's, our culture, like everything else, which is, used against us under white power domination, is used against us. Our culture is used to deepen our oppression, further our oppression, right? And as we witnessed this morning with, what's he at? Man, brother performed this morning. Obeying. Culture's a powerful weapon, right? I didn't know you till yesterday. But I was here, I was vibing with you, I was rocking with you, I had my fist up, I saw the whole room turned up because of what you said. The music you made, our own culture. And the state sees us better than anybody, how our culture can rile us up, can rev us up, and can mobilize and organize us. So naturally, like everything else that can be used to forward liberation, is used to deepen our oppression, right? So as far as these particular artists that I chose, I remember, and this I think is an instance where the state recognizes how powerful and potent our culture can be, and it was used against it. Ice Cube. So I went to an Ice Cube concert a couple years ago. It was Afropunk, 2016. And Ice Cube, one of his famous records with NWA. I'm not gonna say the whole thing because the kids are around, but F the police, right? Right? So everybody was charged. F the police, right? Coming straight from the underground. Young nigga got it bad because I'm brown, right? Right. Charged. He did his whole catalog. He got to F the police. F the police. Had the whole crowd. F the police. Charged. Charged. So he did the whole record, right? And at the end, he goes, now, and I saw it coming. I saw it coming. I must have mad people saw it coming. We're like, don't do it. Don't do it, Cube. Don't do it. He said, now, not all police. Y'all seen him do the right thing on, you know what I'm talking about? The bugging out, That's what the whole crowd did, and they booed him. They booed him. They booed him. They booed him. And just looking at this, I mean, it's clearly this Ice Cube and at the show was not the same Ice Cube in 1991, 1990, right? Because the people who are paying Ice Cube today wouldn't take too kindly to any F the police sentiment. It wouldn't take too kindly to him riling up the people, mobilizing people with F the police, right? Because sell out, bullet, bullet. Sell out. Yes. So go to the next slide, please. So Artists for the Revolution. So like I said before, I'm the coordinator for information education, and we are the propaganda wing of InPDUM. And we are, charged with doing everything in the realm of creating information putting out stuff that you see, anything that brings people to this revolution, right? And unless you're blind, I'm sure you see me moving around here for the past day or so, clicking, taking photos. And I'm a photographer, but at the same time, I understand that I have a responsibility to take any skill, anything that I think I'm good at. I have a responsibility to take anything on earth that I think I'm half decent at and use it to contribute to the struggle, right? And everybody who considers themselves an artist has the same responsibility. It's the most righteous thing you can do, anything, whether you think you've been blessed with it or what. You have a responsibility to use that and contribute to the struggle. So I wanted to really use this opportunity to make a call for anybody, writers, photographers, artists, graphic designers, videographers, anybody in this, can you put your hand right up if you want to be part of the information education subcommittee and contribute your skill to the struggle. Cool, yes. Jason, if you could take these people's names down. Yes, thank you. Yeah, so I think at this point I wanna turn it over to Comrade Akimba, who'll speak more to the outreach. Uhuru, comrades. Fist up. Get these pics. The struggle is Uhuru.
Up. I wouldn't dare. Uhuru. Yeah, so I appreciate the last presentation because propaganda, information to ed and the propaganda that's put out is very important, and it's tied to outreach, which I'm going to speak about. The importance of outreach, and without the propaganda, it would be very difficult to do the outreach. So we're, intricately tied together. Should I say inextricably tied together? So, yeah, one of those words. So, and you talked about the war of ideas, and there is a war of ideas. And there's millions and millions of African people out there that's being indoctrinated every day by the oppressor. And, when they turn their television on, listening to the radio, they're constantly being told, what type of work they should do, go to college, follow these different paths. And none of those paths leads to revolution. And so it's very important, to be a part of an organization like InPDUM, to be a part of, the party if you're ready to take it to that next level. But, when you're part of InPDUM, you're still part of a revolutionary movement in some form of fashion. So it's very important. I'm just like, this is my first convention, and I'm proud to be a part of this. Proud to be up here and to be able to, convey very important ideas and to help build this organization and build these branches. I understand, how important outreach is. All of us came into the organization because of someone doing outreach. And in the organization, when I came into the organization, I've always say I got to give, I got to shout out our president in New York, Rafiq, because Rafiq is always talking. I think he's the embodiment of what we all need to do as members of InPDUM. Because even if you're not a part of the outreach committee, you're not leading outreach, we're all part of outreach. We all, every day when we're having conversations with people, we need to be doing outreach, need to be pulling people into the organization, into the meetings. And, I met Rafiq working at a restaurant, and right next door, there was a Free the Mic event going on with InPDUM. And, he told me about the organization. I was able to get some information put out, because of, the propaganda that was put out. And, I became a member. And I say that to say that, it's very important that when you come into the organization, understand whatever role that you're playing, you're still part of making sure that we're reaching the people. We're reaching those millions of people who are being indoctrinated every day. And so, I recently came back to InPDUM after dealing with some personal contradictions. And when I came to the meeting, we had people filling different roles on the LOC. So, we had a president, we had a secretary, we had a treasurer, and what was the other position? And a membership coordinator. And so, they asking like, anybody want to do outreach? And, I took on the role, not understanding, though, what it takes to do outreach, but I understood it's like one of the most taxing jobs that you're going to have as part of this organization. Because we got to constantly be reaching the people. We got to constantly come up with strategies to bring people into the organization. And before I go into the different things that we need to do to, or the different roles, I should say, that we have being a part of outreach, I just want to say, no matter what role you have in the organization, until there's a committee build up, strong enough committee build up to handle that outreach, every single person in that branch needs to take on a role of reaching the people. every single person. So you're a part of the committee in that branch until there's an actual committee developed. So how to do outreach. So when you go back to your respective cities, I want this to, hopefully this workshop will help you be able to go back and help bring members into the organization, help build a branch in your respective cities. Because so the people are the most important resource. The people are the most important resource of the International People's Democratic Uhuru movement, right? So yes, capital is needed, but capital isn't the most. I want to just emphasize that because we do have conversations about that. The people are the most important resource. And the struggle for African self-reliance and self-determination, that's what we're striving for. And so in that struggle, we need the people. And right now, people from all walks of life are really hungry for change. They're very hungry for transforming this relationship that we have with the oppressor. And so there has to be a presence in the community, and that presence comes from doing the outreach, being in the streets, talking to people, tabling, doing soapboxing, having events we spoke about earlier, just having, if you can't do it weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, but there has to be something going on where the people know that you exist in that community, wherever you are. So InPDUM is an organization. It's our organization, right? InPDUM is our organization. It's a mass organization that allows people at any level of political consciousness to commit acts of revolutionary resistance. Any level of consciousness, they can come in to this organization and play some sort of role in resisting the colonizer, resisting our oppressor. When the Black Panther Party, was in existence, there were people who weren't a part of the Black Panther Party but played some sort of role. My grandfather made pancakes, for children, for the breakfast program they had. He wasn't a member of the Black Panther Party, but he played a role in helping the Black Panther Party able to organize and be able to do the things that they were doing in the community, to be able to exist. But with InPDUM, you're an actual member of an organization. And like I said earlier, you may not be ready to commit fully and become a professional, revolutionary, but you can still commit. You can still support the party by being a member of the International People's Democratic Uhuru movement. And and there's no other organization out there I could say that's doing the work that InPDUM is doing to propel the revolution and to help support the party. The African People's Socialist Party. Our work is to welcome everyone and to win them to the next level by signing them up to get involved. The outreach team has the responsibility to consolidate people and organize supporters to get active and help build InPDUM. One way to do this is to go into the African working class community, set up a literature table. This is one thing that you can do. You can set up a literature table, find a busy intersection where there's, thousands of African people, walking by every day. And like I said earlier, you can soapbox. Soapbox is very effective. But you put your literature out there. You have a clipboard. There's things that you have to, if you're doing outreach, make sure you have your tools with you, right? So you need clipboard, sign-in sheets, extra pens, literature about upcoming events, local InPDUM meetings, having literature about that, and institutional programs that you're building maybe in your respective cities. So, you want to stand out there and you want to give people, make sure that you're engaging the people. Engaging the people is very important, not just standing there and just waiting for people to come over and see what's on your table. Talk to the people, find out what's going on in the community. A good example of engaging the people, we weren't tabling, but we were doing outreach and we were out there talking to the people, and we were asking the people what's going on, what's affecting them, how is colonialism, or how is this relationship that we have with the colonizer, how is it affecting you personally? And having them we have them come to the meetings and make testimonies. And they make these testimonies, and it's an opportunity for us to find out. Instead of us saying, okay, this is the problem, and going into the community and just, creating a program, they coming to us telling us what they need, what the issues are. And that's making your work easier, because now, instead of sitting around thinking about, what we can do as an organization to bring people into these meetings and organize them, the people are telling you what campaigns that needs to be created, or what help that they need. We recently had a sister whose daughter was taken from her, and that was spoken about earlier. And and this is something that we can organize around, because it's bigger than just her problem. It's not like she's the only person who had their child taken from them. So be persistent. The more people you talk to, the more people you'll reach. You never know who you will mobilize by tabling and join InPDUM. Also, when you're out there, you want to make sure that you have enough information, and you're saying things that get people to stop and listen. You're engaging with people, and there's certain calls, that you can say help stop gentrification. Certain, codes, not code, but what's the term I'm looking for? But just certain calls that you can say, that's something that will resonate with the people in that community. So, help stop gentrification, support African self-determination, black community control of the police, things that will get their attention. Africans charge genocide, get them to come over and engage in this discussion with them. So another thing, make sure that you're handing out things that you want to have. I mentioned make sure you have your sign-up sheets, but make sure you have your meeting schedule, InPDUM brochures that have information about the organization. Some people may not have time to sit and talk with you, but you want them to leave with some information about the organization, flyers for your event, and of course, the Burning Spear newspaper. All right, and so and also you want to have a donation can or something cup with you. We're always looking to acquire resources for the many programs that we are developing, and that's another way that people in the community can help. Some people just want to, give money, financial support. They may not want to get involved, so you make sure that you always have a donation can with you as well. And then there's a science you want to apply to doing outreach as well. You don't want to just go out there without a plan of action. So we do reports, weekly reports. We're talking about developing a daily report just to hold ourselves accountable, to make sure that we're constantly doing the work. And so, in part of that daily report, you can have things like set goals for yourself, events that you want to attend for that week, and make sure you set a goal. And if it didn't happen, make sure that you write why it didn't happen. We want to make criticisms if this is something that we decided that we were going to do and it didn't happen. Okay, why didn't it happen, and how we're going to overturn that. You want to make sure that in this, when you're developing this science and doing outreach, how many flyers you want to have distributed distributed or printed and distributed. Contacts gained, you want to set a goal of how many contacts you want to gain for that day, that week. And then, phone banking. Phone banking is very important as well. When doing outreach, you want to make sure that you're phone banking, calling people that you have contacted, the contacts that you have in your database, that you're following up and getting them to come out to these meetings, right? So, you don't want to sit on 100, 200 contacts and felt like you did something. You put in some work. Look at all these contacts I have, but you're not following up, reaching out to them, and your meetings are empty because, you're not following up and communicating with people. It's very effective. So, these are some things that you can have, and make sure you have those hot contacts, people who are very interested in the work that you're doing. People say all the time, it don't take much for a lot of people to say they want to join, organization. Once they get in, it's a different story. But, but people, people, they, like I said, they're looking for something, because they understand that these contradictions exist within the system. They want to be a part of something. But, when it's time to do work, it's a different story. But that's part of the science that you can develop, and these are things that as part of the IEC that Ushindi can get that information out to people who are interested in the respective cities who are over outreach to help them go back and help build these branches. So a few last things before I finish up. So essential functions of doing outreach. That will probably, I think, will help out. Develop a calendar, a weekly calendar, identify events that you can do outreach, table, opportunities for you to table at. This would be very helpful. Just stay ahead of the game. Stay weeks, ahead of the game if you can. That's important. Organize outreach committee members. I know Info Ed beat me to the point. It's like everybody in here raised their hand for Info Ed, but hopefully we have people interested in joining the outreach committee. And look for volunteers. Get people involved, even if they don't want to join InPDUM. Make sure that people who are interested in at least helping out, because people have been burned so much by these organizations out here who's pretending that they're revolutionary organizations and so forth. They want to just sit back and watch and see if this organization, is real or not, if it's for real. And once they get in, just give them work to do, and they'll end up making the right decision, hopefully. Do postering and leafletting too. If you have an event, if you can get resources, because you could just constantly be raising funds for things like this, you want to make sure that you have leaflets. You want to be postering. Once again, let people in your community know that you're there, that you exist. So that's it. Yeah. So that's it. Yeah, that's it. I'm gonna leave it there. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Yeah, call your people. Call your people. When you get the contacts, it's real important to call your people. And send in your reports. That's a criticism. So this next section, at first I want to start off with a self-criticism, because today I put some people on the spot. And that's not the way we do things. I should have called on these people to make these reports earlier on. But what I want to do is I want to call up some local organizers to report on their areas, a quick report. We're short on time, so just make it quick. So I'm going to give the first report with Newark, New Jersey. And it's not a good report, but at the same time, you'll be in a situation where you're organizing alone. There are people out here that's starting up locally, like local organizers in certain areas. And the first thing what I did when I kind of felt like it wasn't going anywhere is that I recruited internally from family. And I brought family here to, see what the convention is about. And I'm not gonna call y'all up. They looking like, please don't call me up. Please don't call me up. You know, but I know when we got back to the hotel, comrades, they hit us with what Cardi B say. I want questions. I got questions. I got answers, and just like bombarded us with a lot of questions, me and Dexter, which is a good thing. You know what I mean? Because they're being exposed to this politic and they're asking questions. So if you're out there alone, the first thing to do is recruit your family. You know, so the next area that I want to call up is Philadelphia. Is Comrade Jess around? Uhuru. All right.
Not today, my bones hurt. Yo, everyone. All right. I'm pretty sure we're struggling with contradictions everywhere. In Philadelphia, we've been doing our thing, or at least trying to do our thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this report. InPDUM in Philly has recently become reactivated. We have begun to organize around the issue of genocide, and as part of our international campaign, we recently held a pre-convention event, Africans Charge Genocide. At this event, we discussed how genocide is not a thing of the past, that we are still systematically being oppressed and killed. Whether we are talking about the healthcare industry, the police, or gentrification, we are being killed in the interests of the ruling class. InPDUM has been working side by side with the African People's Education and Defense Fund, a nonprofit organization that has been organizing the One Africa, One Nation marketplace in Philadelphia for 14 years. We plan to use this economic institution to win the masses into InPDUM. Our goal is to come out of this convention here with a plan to have an official branch within the next 30 days. You heard.
Oh, yeah, I'm excited about Philadelphia and really just streamlining, getting the work of the marketplace, InPDUM, the furniture store, and, you know, having it coincide with each other to use that to build InPDUM. And Comrade Jess is a strong force, very magnetic personality, and I think is going to be winning, to, you know, with Jess in the work. So the next area that I want to report on, in this area, I mean, I can't say enough, you know, what's been happening here in St. Louis. So I'm going to let Conrad Westbrook come up and give a report. Oh.
All right. I'm gonna be very brief. She gave me 10 minutes. I have to take my time. I'm just joking. Yeah, I just a couple minutes. Yeah, St. Louis, we've been doing our thing. You know, first thing I'm proud of that we did, we successfully stole Sherman from Florida. So let's give your hands up for St. Louis. Yeah. But yeah. So, but now we've been doing our thing. You know, we say a chant, "Keep 28" is a fight for Black power. Like Florida got turned Southside black again, because we know gentrification is happening throughout America, and one thing we're trying to do is stop it from happening here on the north side. I mean, they doing it through many different ways, through government with the NGA or through big development. And but one thing we've been doing is holding dynamic rallies each and every Sunday. You know what I'm talking about? But not only dynamic rallies, we've been actually putting foot on the ground to overturn the contradictions, because we know we need 32,000 signatures, and we've been putting foot on the ground to get those signatures, because we know some things only come by force. It don't, you know. So we're trying to be the forces to change that. But not only that, we know that some, like NAACP or Better Family, we don't, or Black Lives Matter, we don't know where their money going. You know what I'm talking about? So Wednesdays, what we do, we transparent. Wednesdays, we have an open door meeting where the public could come out and they could see or hear what we doing, you know. But not only that, what we doing is the politicians, we stand downtown in their face at City Hall. I think y'all seen the clip of that yesterday. Yeah, we doing very dynamic things, and because I don't have my report right here, a piece of paper, I can't tell you everything, but just know we doing a lot of things, you know. So that was just 1 minute. I got 9 more minutes left. So.
So I think, Coach, how much time we have left? I think I'm gonna change it up. Some of you comrades may be off the hook because we want to get to the meat of this and we want to celebrate these different areas. So I want to call up the representatives to our newly formed branches. All right, we got some branches. Go with it. Okay, all right. Okay, all right, okay. All right, okay, came too far. All right, thanks for the for that, President Colombayi. So, all right, so you're not off the hook. So, Chicago, Tell Kabula, could you come give your report, please? Yeah.
Yeah, over in Chicago, you know, it's a lot of people. It's you know, 1 million Africans. It's a lot of work. The Uhuru movement really needs to be there. We got to take on our issues, show that it's genocide and that it's a colonial question. You know, it's a contested field, but we're gonna win this. We've been getting the spear out. We've been having monthly spear rallies all this year, and you know, where we get our contacts, we come in, we read the spear, we study the spear. People get to know us, ask questions face to face, and you know, we're gonna continue that and make it bigger and better, develop it better, and also there's been economic work, which is with Comrade Taylor is really taking this on and is really gonna improve. It's already improving the work and the establishment of the Uhuru movement here in Chicago, up in Chicago.
So some of the economic work that we've been doing is, as many of you have already tasted, we brought Uhuru Foods and Pies to the Midwest. So you know that we're doing it right now. So in addition to that huge, you know, we have been training for months and months and months for this. And so in addition to the Uhuru Foods and Pies, we've also been able to initiate another economic front, which is Multiply with the Midwest, and we were able to complete a job. Some of the materials in your packets are a result of that venture as well, and we have several other ideas in the pot, and we're very excited to be able to bring those to the Midwest, to be able to develop our region in the way that it needs to be developed, to be able to put our stake into the bank so that way not everything is an emergency, so we can, you know, help the entire organizations to be able to develop in a way that it needs to happen. So we are extremely excited in the Midwest to have all these different, you know, exciting things going on. Uhuru.
All right, I'm gonna call up Comrade Demetrius from Seattle, West Coast.
Yeah. I'm Demetrius from Seattle, like you Cindy just said. We came out here. Came out here with Comrade Marissa. Marissa, the Uhuru. Yeah. So Seattle. Yeah. We were working really hard out there, and we didn't. We was planning on bringing more members out here to see y'all, but just the two of us was able to make it. But the struggle continues, and the struggle is real. We also just came off of our African Charged Genocide tour, and it was a little slow going, but that's okay. We still in the struggle. So right now we're preparing for an event we have on November the 10th. It's called On Thanksgiving, and it's talking about the colonization, still in the holiday from the Native Americans, and, and making it a European holiday, which is not. So we're also expecting a chairman in October with USM, and so we gearing up for that as well. So we're still in the struggle. Right now we're selling, we get the Vernon Spear papers and we sell those every month. We also, we're doing tabling and we are working by the science of the movement. And we just keep pushing along and get results. Hooroo.
Comrade Demetrius sends his report in every week. Every week. That's right. Uhuru. All right. That's a criticism. All right, so next up, we're going to bring up Comrade Rafiq from New York. A special presentation.
Uhuru. Yeah, I'm glad to be up here. It's my first, well, no, not really. We got down last time in St. Pete, and I didn't have as much to say as I do today. You know? Last time, we was faking jacks last time. People was coming through with PowerPoint presentations, make it look like they was beating the police up and, chasing politicians out of office and whatnot. Going through that. But it wasn't, anyway, it was cool. But this time, all right, I'm gonna have to violate that. All right, but anyway, I'm gonna get right into it. Since we've been on the ground, we work collectively using our separate talents and our assigned roles. At this point, it's been myself working to coordinate the efforts of Aronde as membership coordinator, Akimba as outreach coordinator, Malik as treasurer, and Fights as secretary. We also have 6 other members that are active. We got some nominal members too. All they doing is just giving us money, but we taking it, But I'm talking about people that you could call and say, yo, let's go out here, let's step to something over here. And they'll come on out, and we looking like that now. And hold on. One of the things though, that's good, but there's some work that I have to do as leadership. I have to better integrate the 6 forces that, I don't really have positions for everybody. And I have to try to assign things to everybody so that they can be involved in the work and they can learn as much as they can. And in the process, we learn more about the science and the theory of revolution so we can best get out there and handle what we got to handle. Because for the most part, what we're dealing with is the lumpen proletariat out there we focused on most heavily right now. And I remember back in the days, me and Diab used to do outreach. I'd ask him about that. And he'd say, they were inconsistent and you can't rely on them, da-da-da-da. But then, that's kind of like the Stalin, the Marx perspective. But Mao said that, under the proper leadership, you could do something with them, because they're the ones who are most affected by it. So, for the most part, we out there making them type of moves. And basically, at this point, we have some people out in Harlem. I'm trying to, get her more involved. Then I met somebody from another organization, and I'm going to try to do some solidarity work with them so we can try to build. I can, get out there and try to snatch some people, from out of that area. And, we got the Bronx and so on. And one of the new comrades, Arset, she wanted to know about how we can start making moves out there in the community she lives in Queens. They need it bad. They need it bad. They need it bad. So, there's a lot of things that we, really do. And overall, I don't want to take too much more time, but for the most part, the masses, despite what people might feel like, they, this and that, they know that they getting their asses whooped. But what happens is, they also are being informed, and it's becoming more and more clear that this system is dying. It's just a matter of, us, getting our ideological moves and things in place so that the new system could be born. And that's the role that we're going to do. That's how we moving out there. We trying to inform them in the kind of way that lets them know this is how we're going to do it. you know, through the revolutionary theory, revolutionary science, African internationalism. And we got it. We got it. Yeah. Uhuru, uhuru.
New York is an official InPDUM branch, and I want to give them the certificate announcing that New York is a branch of InPDUM. Next is Conrad Oliphant from St. Pete's. St. Pete.
Uhuru. Uhuru, comrades. No love for St. Pete over here. All right. Uhuru, comrades. So we created a short report. Just want to really thank our membership for coming out. This is their first time coming to St. Louis, and this is their first InPDUM event. And so we have Comrade Adeleke, who is a Marcus Garvey level member. She just became one this past Sunday. We have Comrade Santosh, Comrade Obing, Comrade Maat. We also have a few who aren't here. We have Comrade Iquan, who didn't come to the trip. We have Timba, David, and we have myself and other party forces who are part of InPDUM, which is the Chief of Staff, Akinge Chimarenga, Akile for District 7, that just waging a really powerful campaign that I'm going to talk about really briefly. We have Yolana and who are interested in the movement, whether they thought they were just coming into something to vote, but they actually came into a much larger movement, a much larger social movement. So that's really good. And something that we have been, that we're going to implement is community walkthroughs and targeted precincts, so to win African people to the struggle of African liberation, not just like targeted voters, because we have a strategy of going door to door to speak to targeted voters with the campaign. But what we want to do is we want to go to African precincts in St. Petersburg, knock on every door and get them involved, because a lot of people are disenfranchised because of like voting. I think it was Amendment 4 that stripped the felons' rights to vote. And so talking to them, because they are part of the revolution too, we want to bring them into this campaign, although they won't be able to exercise those so-called rights. And we have community rallies every Sunday from 3 to 5 p.m. at the Uhuru House. We have meetings every Wednesday from 6 to 8 p.m. And we are looking to become a voter registration organization to get people signed up to vote, because it's going to be a really big battle against this incumbent in St. Pete. And so just building a huge social movement to really take on the entire city, because it's the entire city. It's not just this one person. We are taking on the entire city of St. Petersburg and the white power establishment. And so we will need everybody involved. We're going to have to create an entire new base. So we're going to have to bring people into that, and PDUM's job is going to be that too. So we haven't consolidated a branch. Of course, we weren't recognized as one. So we, coming out of this convention, our goal is to consolidate our leadership body of the local InPDUM branch and former branch. So that is all I have. Uhuru.
Uhuru, I want to just really salute because we are, yeah, I'm on my tippy toes. Leaving out this convention, I want everybody to be inspired to be a branch. And next year at the convention, all these areas will be branches. And we're going to have a bigger space, comrades. We outgrowing our space, and that's a good contradiction to have. And I just wanted to recognize South Africa because they're not here. And in South Africa, they have 4 different regions. Is it what it called? Provinces. And they have, Chiriniso, correct me if I'm wrong, over 80 members in those 4 different areas. Yeah. So they doing their thing. You know what I'm saying? They doing chairman strategy, just knock on doors with the swiper or something. You know what I'm saying? They taking no prisoners. Or however it go. So I wanted to recognize South Africa, and I did want to salute them because they won the Growth Branch Award at the award ceremony, and that wasn't live streamed. So this is live streamed, and they are recording this to have. They're going to show this to all their members as well. So we wanted to salute, South Africa for all their hard work. And these comrades do not have the luxury that we have, and they are fighting and making it happen, and they make no excuses why they're not having meetings and, reading as much as they can have on chairman's political report and, really winning the masses into political life. So I just really want to salute South Africa. And I also wanted to salute a new area that we have is Belize, which we want to be able to. I want to salute them as well because they are watching as well. To just really salute them, and we got a lot of work to do in Belize because the poverty, from what I'm hearing, is extreme. So we are trying to make sure that we have a way to look at our membership to recruit more people in Belize right now. So I wanted to salute Belize as well. So those are 2 areas that I wanted to recognize as well. Uhuru.
Uhuru. So yeah, just want to, wrap it up. Build branches, comrades. Build branches. Oh, what about Dago? All right, yeah, my bad. Yeah. All right, yeah. I wasn't clear. All right, come up here, John. InPDUM San Diego, doing that border work.
Uhuru. Since I'm from Haiti, we like to say coupe tete boule kai. My name is Jean Vilsaint, and I live in San Diego, which is occupied Mexico. And we're building our branch, and we have 14 members right now. Sorry, this is my first time speaking in front of this many people. Awesome. Yeah, so our comrade Jason, he appointed me the local president. I'm like, that's a lie. He's like, nah, you good, man. President don't do nothing but just look good and just look. I said, I think I got that. I got that. Right? Damn. Yeah, and our local secretary is, he was up here earlier hosting Michael Odom, the secretary. And we have Kwame, some of y'all might know him. He's told me he's been a member of InPDUM for a while. And he's our membership coordinator. And Amwita, he's our economic development coordinator. And we've been building the ACG working group, which is African Charged Genocide, and we're focused on the issues at the border with the Africans and the Haitians. The Cameroons and the Haitians really have it horrible at the border. It's really genocide. And brothers have died of starvation when we're right on the other side, 15 minutes away, trying to bring them supplies, and they won't even let us come across unless we pay. And Black community controls the police, and we're working around the gang injunction issue, and we also have the Black community controls of schools, and we have one of our articles in the Burning Spear. You can read about that, and yeah, I think we have enough to say that we are a local branch of InPDUM. So, just want to get to work.
Uhuru. Uhuru. So this document certifies that InPDUM San Diego is an official, recognized, dues-paying branch of the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, as proposed by the InPDUM International Outreach Coordinator and united with by InPDUM's International President and the International Executive Committee. This document confers onto this branch and its members all rights, privileges, and voting powers associated with official branch certification. Uhuru. Uhuru, comrades, build branches. Uhuru. Jason?
Uhuru. I really want to express appreciation for this panel. I think it's extremely important, and I was impressed by what it is that they put forth in terms of concrete evidence of what InPDUM is doing. And I had to step out for a moment to take care of some other things, but I just wanted to, and this may have been mentioned, but I think that this whole issue of branch building, and I think we should give, really continue to give a lot of attention to the whole issue of membership, membership drives. Have membership drives. Recruitment is really in question, really important. I know we're doing some things with the massive, et cetera. I think it's a great idea when we talk about even finding spots, popular spots in different parts of the community, setting up tables with membership forms and signing up people right there, soapboxing right on the streets, and also, one of the most annoying people for me every Saturday used to be those people who knock on your door and wake you up, and the Jehovah's Witnesses. You know why they do that? Because it works. You understand? So I really think we should be talking about membership drive in the communities where we live, and I think somebody mentioned that it's happening in occupied Tanzania, South Africa. Knock on the door. Have real drives where we will spend a day or however many hours in a particular community and knock on the door. And I'm from the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, sister, and we're really trying to build to get more and more black people to come into organization, all this stuff that's happening to us, because this is what we stand for, et cetera, and all it takes is for $35, you can become a member. You have our own working class organization, because we're not going to be able to break out of here until we have our own organization. You know what the NAACP has done up to now. We have to have our own organizations. And when you knock on that door, whether you get a member or not, what you've done is let people know you're there, and you spread your philosophy, and you're going to get some members as a consequence, because people want some changes. And I would just really think that should be considered. If nothing else is happening, there's never a time when you don't have something to do. I mean, selling the burning spear, of course, and then just knocking on a door. And pick the communities that you're going to work these 2 hours, this Saturday, this is where we're going to go. So I just wanted to consider that, because I think this is really important. And we should really think about, because we do outreach around different campaigns, different events that we're doing, but membership drives. For the purpose of getting members, knock on the door. And I don't know, Comrade Ushindi brought his beautiful daughter. Who else is here that's your relative?
Oh, that's her boyfriend, Takini.
Stand up, boyfriend. There's the boyfriend. But there's a star. Stand up. Stand up. Yes, you. Yeah. Yeah. So that's one form of recruitment. But it takes 9 months to make one of those. Right? and then several years for them to get active, right? So knock on a door, you understand? Knock on as many doors as you can, right, to bring people into this organization. Uhuru.
Y'all ready to eat? That was a serious yes. Okay, so we're gonna break off and have lunch right now. It's gonna be in the back, same thing as yesterday. So we have 1 hour. Does somebody? What time is it right now? 1 o'clock, basically. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna reconvene at 1:53. And if you're not here at 1:53, but no, come back at 2. Let's just round it off. Come back at 2. But let's go ahead and eat, y'all. Uhuru.
Thank you.